But my beats, they are hard.
Hello, and good evening, folks, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. It's the BCSN SportsWrap right here on the Black College Sports Network. Brian Fulford right here, and joining me tonight, none other than the legend, SWAC, should be Hall of Famer if he's not, the voice of Alcorn State Sports Radio, none other than Mr. Charles Edmond at Call Me in Radio on X. Charles, how you doing tonight?
Man, I am getting ready to cry over here. I cannot believe I'm a part of this program. I'm all choked up. I don't know what to do with myself, man. I really don't. I mean, wow. I don't know what to say. It's been a good weekend. Braves win. I'm a part of this. It don't get any better than this.
Exactly. Well said. Of course, those of you you're probably, if you're not familiar with Charles' voice via Alcorn State Sports, or if you don't catch the Brave Talk with Charles Edmond, the offshoot version of his shows that he does with the Alcorn State Braves, that Brave Talk appears right here on the BCSN Pod Zone. Of course, he is one of the panelists, one of the guest co-hosts with the Carlos Brown Show, usually every Saturday right here on the Black College Sports Network. So, seeing as how we didn't have you this yesterday, Charles, I had to reach out and let me get Charles on the air. You know, I figure you would be a better ask than Carlos, because Carlos might be in his feelings after last night. So I figured I would not even dare ask Carlos. I would give him the 24-hour rule, so to speak.
Well, no,
he probably needs it.
I've been knowing Carlos a long time, and I guarantee you, that loss hurts, not losing the game, but in the way Southern lost the game, just not really showing up, really, if you just want to be honest with it. Didn't show up to work. But, that was a tough game, tough matchup. And, him and I talk about these matchups all the time when we're playing outside the league, how it just doesn't get the same sizzle. Whether it's preparation, I know coaches, they say that they prepare for every game the same way, but I've been in practice when we play a McNeese and when we play a Vanderbilt or a UAB, and on the surface they try, and coaches do try to treat it the same way, but on social media don't get the same sizzle, don't get the same action. Like Florida A&M and Alabama State, that game was all over social media all week long. It was Alabama State's homecoming. It was talked about all week long, and so everybody was into it. But in a game like that, Southern won the previous week, playing in the FCS, and that's a whole nother conversation that Carlos and I've talked about. We're just not getting it done against FCS opponents. And they got 63 scholarships just like we do. I get excited. I get fired up. I've been a part of 2 playoff appearances that Alcorn has had in those games, and we just don't rise up to that same level when we play those teams. Even though they got the same number of scholarships, FCS and all that is not the same. It don't feel the same. It don't look the same. So that's a whole nother tangent for a whole nother day. But the way Southern lost the game at home, coming off a big win, I know was disappointing for the Jaguar Nation. But they better wake up, because they go to Texas Southern this week. And this Western Division race could really go topsy-turvy here over the next 2 weeks. We got Grambling this week. We go to Southern next week on their homecoming. Who knows what's going to happen in that Western Division?
You said a mouthful, and I really feel like that, to me, that's inexcusable. I know that's the frustrating part, to not be up for a game. I mean, that team, and we're jumping right into it. I love it. That team that they lost to, so Southern again lost. Hold on, let me just throw the graphics while you guys are joining us. If you haven't seen the scores, so obviously when you look at the scores from last night, look at that one there on the bottom left. They're taking on at the time a Nichols school that's coming in. I believe they were 1-3 coming into the contest. 1-3. Nichols already played somebody else in the SWAC, didn't they? Was it Grambling?
I don't know. I know Louisiana played Grambling early in the year.
That's what I'm thinking.
Louisiana, yeah.
Well, but still, you got to.
Oh, they played Valley. They played Valley. You're correct.
Okay, so that was their only other win. So they have now 2 wins in the first 5 games, and they're both against SWAC. Anyway, but that's, to me, inexcusable. We'll talk about the other scores there in a minute. Inexcusable to come unprepared to play at home, and then what, you expect to turn it on next? Anyway, we got a lot to talk about here on this show. Guys, we'll start with we'll get to the good news. Obviously Charles and I are feeling good. Our teams got wins. We're not talking about our Sunday teams because, boy, Jesus, Charles.
The Rams are winning. The Rams are winning at half against Can't pick a PAT, and that might come back and bite us here in the second half. But
I saw that.
Hey, the Rams aren't. This isn't it. Now they do have a ton of injuries. A lot of guys up front. Cooper Kupp is out. I mean, the Rams are banged up, but every team in the NFL is banged up, and you got to find a way to get it done. And right now, the Rams are struggling. They're winning right now, but who's to say what's going to happen in the second half?
Yes, indeed. All right, so let's get it. Obviously, coming up at the bottom of hour 2, we're going to get into talking about some of the top. We had 2 BCSN top 5 matchups that took place, so we'll talk about those games as well as a big upset involving a previously unbeaten team. We'll talk about that coming up with AD Drew will join the show in the bottom of the hour. Coach Farasi Norman will join us in hour 2. So we got a busy show tonight, and we will also debut, I guess it's called a debut, week number 3, the BCSN top 5, as we will, kind of take a look and see, will we have a new number 1, or will the number 1 went back for a second consecutive week in the polls? But let's start first, Charles, with the game that you called right there in Norman. UAPB coming into town. Alcorn would get a 38-28 victory, but that is not the lead story in this contest. As much as we want to put emphasis on wins and losses, the lead story is actually on the young man from UAPB. And if you did not hear the news, UAPB defensive back Caleb Knox was seriously injured in the contest. And I'm just reading a statement here from Coach Alonzo Hampton regarding Knox, in which was reported here. I'm just reading a tweet from HBCU Premier Sports and More. And it said from Hampton, he was talking and he can feel certain parts of his lower extremities. So we're encouraged by that. I'll give it over to you now, Charles, because you were there and you can kind of fill in what you've seen from that game and from that incident.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see much. The replay kind of showed a little bit how it happened, and just a tough football situation with his neck and the upper body situation, and he was motionless for a good bit of time, and he was obviously put in an ambulance, and then and I was just talking with somebody earlier, of all the games that I've done at Jack Spanks Marino Castle Stadium, we've had these type of injuries from time to time, not very often, but then when you have to airlift someone, and the helicopter landed on our practice field behind the stadium, and folks were taking pictures of the helicopter and the helicopter landing. And Cedric Tillman, our sideline reporter, I didn't know he was going to be airlifted, but he was talking to some people on our sideline saying that he will be airlifted. About 15 minutes later, the helicopter arrived, and so you hated to see that, and that just shows you the seriousness of the injury. UAPB athletic director, Chris Robinson rode on the helicopter with him, and I was told just moments ago from our athletic director, Dwayne Robinson, that he was really our Pine Bluffs AD was really pleased at our operations in terms of how we handled it, having medical people available. The ambulance was right there about 50 yards away. So just the way it was handled, the delicate nature in terms of how it was handled, it didn't matter how long it took. It could have took 2 hours to get that situation rectified and get it stable. But I think everybody did a good job from what I saw. And it's just an unfortunate situation. He's got a brother that's on the team that rode on the helicopter as well. So from what I was told, I talked to Cedric Thomas earlier today, and the report the report you read is true. He's feeling something now, but from what I was told at the time, he couldn't. And so that was just a very delicate situation. About, I would say 20, 25 minute delay there, but it didn't matter how long it took as long as everything was done decent and in order, and it was. So their athletic director praised our team being on the road. You know how tough that is. You don't have your own folks with you. And so to handle it the way we did in that moment, homecoming, I mean, the place was packed, folks all over the place. I mean, I thought we did an amazing job in doing what we can do. And then the helicopter arrived pretty quickly. If you just look at it, I mean, the helicopter probably came from Natchez. I mean, it's probably a 10-minute helicopter ride, but still, you got to get somebody on the phone. You got to get somebody ready to go. So I thought out of all of that, I thought we handled it well, and their AD thought we handled it well too.
Caleb Knox is a 6'1" defensive back. He's from Bryant, Arkansas. He has been at UAPB since he arrived in 2021. So this is his fourth year at UAPB. And as you mentioned, he has a brother on the team as well. Kyle. Kyle is just kind of looking here on the site. He's also a defensive back, a senior as well. So I don't know, twins. It looked like they may be twins. Okay, yeah, okay. So yeah, definitely you understand why you understand just being your brother, but especially your twin brother. So prayers to the Knox family, prayer to Caleb, and I know as we hear more, you can obviously get more information, hopefully via UAPBLionsRoar.com is the website for UAPB. And I'm sure some of our other shows, I'm sure hopefully by Tuesday, whether it be Dr. Cavill's show, we hear other news regarding Mr. Knox.
We'll probably hear something tomorrow on SWAC Coach's teleconference. I'm sure Coach Hampton will get asked about that. Probably first thing right off the bat on the coach's teleconference. And it'll be early too, because UAP, well, I don't know if UAPB goes later on. I think they do. But I think that'll be one of the first.
I think he's on the second half. UAPB is usually one of the second half. So I know it's definitely somewhere after the two Florida schools. So,
right.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that'll be the first question. Just like we're talking about it first on Cedric Thomas's show tomorrow. That's going to be the first question that I ask him, because he said he's been in contact with Coach Hampton. Of course, Coach Thomas graduated and was a head coach at UAPB. And if you watch the game, Coach Thomas was probably 6 or 7 feet from that huddle where they were huddled around him, and he was on a knee. And I talked with him, a little while ago. And so, he gets kind of emotional when that kind of stuff happens, because that's somebody's child, that's somebody's son. And so Coach Thomas is aware of how those things unfortunately can happen. So he was right there, if you watch the game. So I'm sure he was kind of had wide range of emotions during that moment as well.
Speaking of the actual game, UAPB got out on top of you guys early with a 14-7 lead at the end of the first quarter. Alcorn was able to tie it up at the half, and then it was the 24 points in the second half to only UAPB's 2 touchdowns. And I don't know, you may have mentioned it, but I don't know at what point that injury happened in relation to the game and effects. And so I don't know how much of a factor it played into the emotions for Arkansas Pine Bluff.
The injury happened with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Okay, so yeah, significant time still in the game.
Yeah, significant time in the game, and UAPB actually made a little bit of a push there at the end. They were aided with some of our penalties on defense. We've had 30 penalties in the last 3 games that we got to clean up. We got to fix that right now if we're going to get to where we need to be. But yeah, that was at a very critical time in the game. And UAP, and I saw Coach Hampton huddle around his team, and I think you saw some of the players just kind of rally around that situation, and they had a little bit of a push. But we were able to run the football for 300 yards yesterday, and that was huge. When you can run the football like that, you can take the air out, the oxygen out of it, and that's what we did. But look, I'm gonna say this about UAPB right now. With Hagens at quarterback, who's a veteran guy, the way they're able to spray it around, they're gonna give some teams in this conference some problems. They woke us up real quick. It was 14-0 before you could get your popcorn from the concession stand. It was 14-0, and I'm like, it's homecoming. Cedric Thomas locked his team down for 4 days, curfew at 9:00 Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night. UAPB fresh. They didn't play last week, and they jumped out 14-0, and I'm like, But then our defense kind of woke up, and then we're able to run the football. Xavier Vaughn, UAPB transfer, he's finding his niche in terms of running the football. He's a dual threat quarterback, and I think that kind of kept UAPB off balance. We had Sewell had 100 yards rushing in that game. So our running attack, we had 600 yards in the last 2 games running the football, 300 yards a game. We get 300 yards a game, we're going to be fine. But, again, you got Grambling coming up, so we'll see. But, overall, I thought UAPB is going to be a dangerous team. We made the plays that we had to make. We woke up when we needed to wake up, and, we did what we had to do. But I'm going to tell you, UAPB is going to be a tough out. I think if they play that way, start fast, and continue what they do, I think UAPB could be a tough out in that Western Division.
Charles, I jokingly told somebody I was going to take a shot next time I heard somebody say that about a team. I didn't know who was going to be. I didn't know if it was UAPB though. But I guess it's what it is I feel like we say that about so that statement, while it may be true, okay, I sometimes I want that team, whether it be UAPB, whether it be Delaware State, whoever it is, that team that is like right on the edge of kind of being average or good, but the challenge is I need them to get over the hump. I need those kids and that coaching staff to find a way to get over the hump so that we don't say that every year. Because I feel like we it's something we say every year about certain teams. I feel that way, and I'm like, come on, I need you to get over the hump. Get me a win. Shock the world. Do what Vanderbilt did the other day. Just actually put it together. Put it all together and knock someone off instead of always being close. You know what they say about being close? Only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, right, Charles? So it's like
I agree with that, but I heard a coach say, when you're kind of digging out of the hole, you lose big, then you lose little. And it's a simplistic statement what he made. You lose big, you lose little, then you're even. Then you win little, then you win big. So I'm not saying UAPB's on the way. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that what I saw yesterday is if teams sleep on UAPB and they jumped out on us 14-0, who's to say they can't jump out on Grambling 14? I mean, the way they were able to spray the ball around, the way Hagens was able to, stand tall in the pocket. Now, he made some bad decisions and taking some sacks, which took a lot of oxygen out of some of their attacks. All I'm saying is that right here, right now, if they play the way that they play next week, the week after, some teams going to sleep on UAPB because they haven't won. And I think that's part of the deal, too. When you haven't won, and this is Coach Hampton's second season, you do kind of take your foot off the gas and think, okay, they're not there yet. We can, not saying coast, but we don't necessarily have to take it as serious. And I'm not saying they're not either. But I'm telling you, I think UAPB is going to disappoint some teams if they're not ready to play. Because I like what they did. Hagens only threw one interception going into the game yesterday. He threw a big pick, which I thought turned the momentum a little bit. But what I'm seeing, they're 1,000% better at the quarterback position this year than they were last year. They didn't have one last year. Hagens was supposed to start last year. He did, but he got hurt. So who knows? You have a healthy Hagens last year plus a healthy Hagens this year. UAPB could have been much better off, but that's not the case. And so, but I'm just saying, this is just my opinion. I might be wrong, but what I saw yesterday, and our defense had 3 interceptions last week against Valley. We have one guy, Summerauer, has 4 leading the conference. We hardly called his name yesterday. And so I'm thinking UAPB, not saying that they're all the way back, but one nugget at a time. And I may be overstating it, but what I saw, UAPB offensively is a lot better than what they were last year. And if you think that that's not the case, let it happen and let's see what happens. But they jumped on us early. We made some plays. We did what we had to do, but you better not sleep on UAPB. Not saying they're going to win the game, but they're going to give you a tussle. And you win those tussles. Sometimes you lose those tussles. They're talking about the other team. So we'll see.
Well, we will definitely see them on Friday as they host Prairie View, another team that is coming in limping, licking their wounds. So we'll get a chance to see that on Friday. So that'll be an interesting matchup. All eyes will be on that game on ESPNU on Friday, October 11th, scheduled for an 8:15 kickoff right there in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Okay, let's get to but we'll come back and talk about Alcorn later in the, because you guys got a big matchup. You got the 2 wins out of the way. You're 2-0 in conference. You're leading the West. God help the West. I can't even put my mind on it. But let's go to the East. Let's go to the East, Charles, because the East is the beast. The East is where it's at. And it starts none other than right up in Montgomery, Alabama, where the BCSN number 3 ranked Alabama State Hornets hosting the defending SWAC champions, Florida A&M University Rattlers, for homecoming, Charles. They made a mistake and they brought us in for homecoming. Now, interesting thing, Charles, we had on Nick Eden. Nick, of course, he hosts a show in the Quad, a daily show. He also is the creator of HBCU Trending. If you keep up, he told us on Wednesday's ONG Strike Zone that, and Drew will attest to this because he's familiar with the Alabama area. This is one of those games where, yes, they scheduled us for homecoming, but it's not the quote-unquote biggest matchup on Alabama State's calendar with many alumni, because they have the Labor Day Classic at the beginning of the year. They have the Turkey Day Classic at the end of the year. And so, and for many people, the Turkey Day, from what I'm told, is really sort of their homecoming, game. But still, for purposes of the calendar and for the record, y'all scheduled us. Big mistake. Y'all scheduled the Rattlers, and you gave us nothing but motivation. It was a great crowd, apparently. Some 33,576 showed up for it. After a close first quarter, the score was 7-7. At the end of the first quarter, also the second quarter, nothing happened there. So you go into halftime with a 7-7 ball game. All of a sudden my phone is blowing up, Charles. People are like, my chat groups, I'm calling a game, right? But I can look at my chat group just going nuts. Folks on the chat group are losing their mind. They're like, oh my God, how are we? Anyway, in the second quarter though, third quarter rather, quarterback Daniel Richardson connected with Ace Cobb for the second touchdown for that pair midway through the third quarter, 35-yard touchdown to give FAMU a 14-7 lead. Alabama State would answer with a 23-yard field goal at the end of the third quarter. Going into the fourth quarter, though, Richardson would find a second receiver for his third touchdown, Goldie Lawrence, for a 10-yard score with 9:02 left to play. That put FAMU up 21-10. Bama State would end up with another field goal being held out of the end zone. And then we capped it off with a scoop and score off a fumble Friend of the O&G strike zone, Nayron Jenkins, linebacker, having a heck of a season for the Rattlers with a 20-yard scoop and score. Rattlers 28-13. They covered the spread. Everyone's happy, sort of. Charles, what do you make of? Obviously, FAMU. There were a total of 7 turnovers in this ball game, Charles. FAMU committed 4. Alabama State committed 3. So ugly game from that perspective. But I guess, a win's a win for the Rattlers. But Alabama State now, we were already kind of wondering what their season was going to be like without Andrew Body, without the other young man. What's your take on just those two teams, that game, and just what can we expect from Alabama State? We'll talk more about FAMU a little later, but what's your thoughts?
Well, first of all, as far as the homecoming opponent, I found it intriguing, and you and I talked about this several weeks ago. Like, what's the hotel prices like in Montgomery with Florida A&M coming to town? One of the things I've learned, Brian, that Florida A&M and Alabama State's pretty nice rivalry between those two. I really didn't know. It caught my attention in baseball 2 years ago when FAMU won the baseball championship, how they had to get it done against Alabama State at the end of the regular season and then in the tournament. And I didn't realize how big of a rivalry that is. I mean, I think it's a sneaky good rivalry, to be honest. 2 schools, 4 hours away, 4.5, whatever it is. So it's a really good rivalry. But then I'm just wondering also, Alabama State close Valley this week. So I'm thinking that maybe should have been homecoming, but they chose Florida A&M. But I go off on a tangent when it comes to these homecoming matchups. Is it about the opponent or is it about the date? I get kind of caught up in it because we all have our homecomings at certain times of the month, October, whatever it is. Our homecoming is earlier than what it usually is. I don't know if Alabama State's homecoming, if this is where they're supposed to have it, if the SWAC schedule lines up to where you're going to be on the road, whatever. But for Alabama State, they have a home game next week that could have been homecoming. So you add some fuel to the fire. The SWAC champs, Celebration Bowl champs are your homecoming. But, Florida A&M, that wasn't pretty. 4 turnovers on the road, playing on somebody's homecoming, you still find a way. So for Florida A&M, I think they're showing that they, as well as Jackson, are the 2 top teams in the East. There's no question about it. Alabama State's down to their 3rd, maybe 4th string quarterback. That's a challenge. Alabama State's defense can be stout. They held Samford to 12 points, but yet their offense continues to be a struggle, and I think that hurts their defense. And so, look, Richardson, he's finding a way. I saw him play against South Carolina State, man. He just finds a way to make plays. And so, may not be pretty, may not be a thing of beauty, but Florida A&M's finding a way to get this thing done. And clearly they're showing like they're the defending conference champs for sure. Wasn't pretty, but you'll take it. There's no such thing as a bad win. And in football, there's no such thing as a thing of beauty, even in a victory. So you'll take it. Packed house, 33,000. That's impressive for Alabama State at Hornet Stadium. For you to go on the road like that, and I know there's a lot of Rattler fans. I saw some of the pictures of their fans showing up and showing out. I'm really impressed with how they were able to survive on the road with 4 turnovers, but they found a way in the second half. And at this point, halfway through the season, that's all that matters.
I think FAMU has committed turnovers in every game this season. And I know I got some friends, some Rattlers in the chats. But that's the one in terms of plus minus. I don't think they have been on the plus side in a game yet. And so that's what worries me. That really worries me because some things are just not sustainable. If you pay attention to college football and just football in general, some things, the team that usually makes the most errors is the team that usually loses. You make a lot of penalties, you usually lose. You get behind continuously in ball games, you usually lose. So at some point, that's got to change. So FAMU gets another bye week because obviously this was an already scheduled bye. Last week, they had to move the Alabama A&M game because of Hurricane Helene. They rescheduled that game for the Friday after Thanksgiving. So FAMU has kind of played this 2 games over almost a 4 or 5 week period, Charles, where after this bye, of course, becomes the Jackson State game. And it's like, woo-wee, just Jackson State. Hey, Jackson State has a bye as well. Jackson State coming off of a 45-38 victory yesterday over Alabama A&M, a game in which, a tale of two halves. They controlled that game, jumped out as big as a 38-10 lead before they probably got a little comfortable, got a little lax. I heard there were some non-starters that got into the ball game in the third quarter. And then I heard reports that, Coach Taylor had to put the starters back in late in the ball game. So for whatever reason, the game was not indicative of the score, but Jackson State looking good, in my opinion. Jacobian Morgan also looking good. He threw 3 touchdown passes yesterday, off the heels of throwing 2 and running 2 the week before. And Irv Mulligan, who was, I think, one of the top running backs coming into preseason, 16 carries, 86 yards, 2 touchdowns. A young man, and I hope I'm saying his name right, Jones Portillion, 6 catches, 83 yards, 2 touchdowns. He has scored touchdowns in now 3 consecutive games. And so, Charles, I'm nervous. I can't admit this in some places, and people are going to give me hell in the chat. I'm nervous about a couple of weeks. It's the game of the year, Charles. But what's your thoughts on Jackson State in that Alabama A&M game?
Well, TC Taylor's talked about finishing the job, and Jackson State is trying to finish the job yesterday. If you look at the stats, they dominated. They were dominated time of possession. 40 minutes to 20 minutes. They didn't score in the fourth quarter, as you mentioned. They led 38-10. So if you look at the game, Jackson State had a short field. They had a 39-yard drive for a touchdown, a 31-yard drive for a touchdown. So some short fields, kickoff, I think special teams, they got a touchdown off of that. So look, Jackson State, they start fast, but then trying to finish the deal. And so you got to give Alabama A&M a little bbit of credit for, fighting and making it a game. It really wasn't when you look at it, but, Jackson has struggled to finish. And it is going to set up, the game. That is the game of the year in the Eastern Division. Can you see Alabama State pushing? Can you see Alabama A&M pushing? Bethune. This is it. This is it for the Eastern Division. Whoever wins that game is going to be probably in the driver's seat and just kind of coasting from that because you got tiebreakers involved. So, but I will say that Jackson State, they still got to go to Alabama State though. Even though I said that it's going to be the game of the year to that point. But Jackson's got some work to do. They got to come to Alcorn. They got to go to Alabama State. And so if you look at the schedule, I think for Jackson, this is just the next game up for them. And speaking of Alabama State, Brian, I looked at their schedule the other day. They lost at home. The rest of the season, they only have 1 game on the road. Every game is going to be in the state of Alabama, either in Montgomery, Birmingham, or Mobile the rest of the season. They play us in Mobile the second day of November. But, the schedule is tailor-made. I don't know if the University of Alabama's got that kind of schedule if you look at down the stretch. If you look at it, but, you got to take advantage of that. But I think, for Florida A&M, if they win that game, they're going to be in pretty good shape. But for Jackson, it's just the game in front of them. But they got a tough road to hoe, though. They got a tougher road, I think, playing at Alabama State, coming to Alcorn. Who knows? If things work out for the Braves and if we can get it done, that could be a game that the Braves get that game and they win the West. So Jackson's got a tough road to hoe, I think. But clearly that's going to be a good one. The game's going to be in Jackson. I think Jackson fans are waiting for Florida A&M to come to Memorial Stadium. It should be 50,000, maybe close to 60 there. That's going to be a really good contest. And I agree with you, though. You can't continue to get away with what you've been getting away with and expect to win games. The turnover battle you talked about, you can't turn it over 4 times and expect to win every game, even in the SWAC. You can't do that. And so I think with this bye week coming up, I think Colsey's got to clean that up a little bit. But clearly, I think that quarterback's playing with a lot of poise and making some plays, and the defense is doing just enough. So I think for Florida A&M, they're in a really good spot, and we'll see if they can continue the momentum.
Well, it was a tough day for the state of Alabama. in terms of football teams, not on all levels. And so it brings to the forefront for the following week, Charles, the fact that Alabama State, as you mentioned, hosts winless Mississippi Valley. Alabama A&M hosts winless Bethune-Cookman. And so that is, I call the prelude to what will be one of the also most intriguing games on October 19th. That is Bethune versus Valley, where Bethune travels to Valley. Somebody, unless an Alabama school screws it up next week, Charles, somebody gets their first win because they just have to. Somebody has to win. No ties. There are no ties allowed unless Mother Nature says that there's a tie. But this, just see, Drew corrected me. Let me rephrase. At the Division I level, nobody from Alabama got a win.
Oh, yeah.
On the D2 level. So I have to clarify. See, I can't get away with anything on this show. Good stuff.
is really good with those intricate details. He really is. You got to dot the I's and cross the T's with Drew. I can tell you that.
Well, speaking of Drew, we'll get into some more talk about the FCS side of things. But coming up, AD Drew will be on the other side. And I saw a few of you guys asking, where's AD? Well, he's coming up. And we're going to find out a little bit about what AD's been doing lately, as well as get into talking about these. We had 2 top 5 matchups in the CIAA over the weekend. And I got a new contender that everyone needs to pay attention to in the SIC. I shouldn't say they're new because they are what they are. They're one of the blue bloods. But I saw them on Saturday, Charles. Woo! Boy, they look good. I'll talk about that team coming up on the other side of this break. You're watching the BCSN SportsWrap right here on the Black College Sports Network. We'll be back in just a moment.
If you think all pads are exactly the same, think again. This is Always Ultra Thins reinvented with the Always Triple Protection System. This pad wicks gushes 90% faster, absorbs even more so you can feel dry, and locks odors in. Rethink your pad for up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort with the totally reinvented Always Ultra Thins. This is always like never before.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
Nope. Nope.
Come on, him?
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up message quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less. He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
This is Brian Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Wrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Wrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
All right, welcome back to the BCSN Sports Wrap. Brian Fulford, Charles Edmond, and look who's joining us. It's none other than A.D. Drew. Still with his name on the title of the show, as you heard in the last commercial. So
I got to collect on my NIL, man. I mean, y'all taking advantage of my name and likeness. Don't make me pull an Ed O'Bannon on you.
Nice. Drew,
what's going on, homeboy from U City?
What's up? What's up, St. Louis?
St. Louis in the house.
Real quick before we get in here with Drew, I saw a few people, especially EA, definitely want to make everyone aware. If you're not, of course, the Florida, especially out in the Tampa area, the west coast of Florida, we got to pay attention to Hurricane Milton is forming somewhere just off the coast of Mexico, and it looks like it's heading east. So all indications have it targeting coming onto the shores of Florida sometime Wednesday. So start making your preparations if you are in the Florida area. I know we have a lot of people from Florida that watch our show, but also, hey, pay attention, you folks in southern Georgia, southern Alabama, because you never know these, I know all the tracks say it's going one way, but you know how we never know what's up with these hurricanes. So just stay alert, everybody. And, if you're in the potential path, do your best to start making preparations now.
Yeah, I have a cousin. I have a cousin, guys, that lives in Tampa, and I used to play for the Buccaneers. And I talked with him before this first storm hit. He said he was hunkering down, and I talked with him again. He's gonna hunker down again. And so it's just, I know it's just got to be crazy. I mean, a major city hit twice in a 2-week period. I know that's got to be tough. My thoughts are with folks over there, because I know that's just tough to deal with.
Yeah. All right, Drew. See, we got people asking if you were still in the transfer portal. What's going on with you? So
I am out of the portal. I have signed my contract and everything, but we'll get to that at the end of this segment.
Okay. Oh, okay. So you want to do sports stuff before we get to that. Okay, I got you. I didn't know whether you want to go in lead with that or wait till later. So that's fine. Okay, so hey, look, we had 2 top 5 matchups.
Before we get to those, Bryan, I got to do one question. I got to ask one question. Charles, have you done a wellness check on your co-host of the Saturday show, Carlos, and make sure he's okay?
Yes, I sent him a text. He's feeling better health-wise, but I think he's neutral when it comes to the game yesterday. I think he knew it was going to be tough. He knew it was going to be tough to beat Nichols. And so with that, I think it's a wash for him. I think he's just going to let it roll off his back, and they better get ready for this week coming up. That's all I'll say. If you let that Nichols State game affect you, what you got coming up this week, you got to go to you got Texas Southern, I think, coming up this week. And so I think you better watch out. You better watch out. So Carlos is fine. He'll be okay. But that was not pretty what we saw yesterday with Nichols.
I mean, you got to keep it under 50. That's all I'm going to say.
Adrian Kirk said the point spread was 49. My God. Yeah. Well,
oh, wow.
And you still would have won if you'd went against the
spread. Ooh, it's rough.
Yeah, rough in the swag. I tell you what. All right. Okay, so jumping over quickly to some of the D2 games in our non-Division I poll, we had 2 top 5 matchups involving Virginia State, who was traveling to Johnson C. Smith, second time in 3 weeks that the Golden Bulls got a chance to host one of the Virginia powers. And I call them that because they have been the standard in the Northern Division and pretty much in the CIAA for a better part of a decade, Virginia State and Virginia Union. So the number 1 Golden Bulls hosting Virginia State, and we also had Virginia Union hosting number 2 Winston-Salem State. So let's kind of just quickly talk Johnson C. Smith and Virginia State. ended up getting Johnson C ended up pulling out the victory in this contest, 21-17. Very similar score to what they did against Virginia Union. I think they beat Union 21-16. Yeah. So Johnson C had a 7-0 lead at halftime. And then all kinds of offense broke out in the third quarter. You had Jada Byers scoring on a 55-yard pass to tie the game up. Then Johnson C. Smith, Brevin Caldwell, one of the top receivers in the nation, scored on a 53-yard pass from Darius Ocean to retake the lead. Then Virginia State. I'm sorry, I said Byers earlier. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong Virginia team. That was a young man, Baylor, who scored that touchdown for Virginia State. Then Virginia State tied it up at 14 again with the 13-yard pass play. Oh, Johnson C would answer on the next drive and retake the lead 21-14. Johnson C would only manage a field goal in the fourth quarter with 11:05 to play, unable to score again. That's how the game ended. The Bulls holding on 6-0, 3-0 in conference play. I saw some stat that said they're the only unbeaten football team in the NCAA, regardless of division 1, 2, 3, in the state of North Carolina. Drew, we've talked about this Bulls team. I mean, I'm a believer. If you weren't a believer last week, I'm a believer now. What's your thoughts on Johnson C?
I totally agree with that. And Brian, when you get to your six-pack of players, I need you to look to the defensive side for Johnson C. Smith. And look at Benari Black.
I got
16 tackles on the day, 8 solo, including 1.5 tackles for loss.
Yeah.
So 16 tackles, that's a season for a lot of people. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's just impressive. Look, shows you how well defensively these two teams were, because neither quarterback, although they both passed for just over 200 yards, both of them threw for under 15%. I mean, 50%. Ocean, 11 for 25. Williams, 11 for 30. So neither quarterback was really able to muster anything defensively. And run games were decent. VSU ran for 107. Johnson C ran for 144. So, but Johnson C has stepped up to the test. They have shown that they are going to be the class of the CIAA. And right now, they have the tiebreaker over the two northern teams. Mm-hmm. So, and Fayetteville's behind them. So we're getting into the point of the year, Brian, when they get into the traditional North versus North, South versus South schedule, because even though they're all blew up there together, they're still playing that schedule format. We know one of the Virginia schools are going to eliminate each other because they have to go head to head. Bowie State is already out of it. They've got 2 losses. They're out of it right now. Fayetteville State is a loss away from being out of it. Shaw is a loss away from being out of it. So, one of the Virginia schools is in the driver's seat, and then everybody else is trying to possibly and hope that there's a slip-up, because you're playing for tiebreakers right now, especially with these head-to-head matchups. Everybody is playing for second place. What conference have we seen that in before the last couple of years? Oh, the SIAC with Mid-Atlantic.
Charles, what's your thoughts there on that big time on that matchup, that game, and just Johnson C. Smith?
Man, I mean, I like, I don't get a chance to follow the schools on that level, but I like the exciting brand of football there and just the passion and energy. A.D. Drew is the expert when it comes to that kind of stuff. I agree with all that. And then you got Clark in there,
Oh,
For
we're gonna
me,
hold on to Clark. We're gonna hold on to the Clark and the SIC for a second.
we're gonna hold on. Okay, we're gonna hold off. We're gonna hold off on that because they had a big win over Bethune. That's the one thing that stood out for me, and I fell out of the chair on that one when I saw that result. But
I did.
look,
I fell out the chair yesterday when I saw the result, but that's a
yeah,
different story.
yeah. But I really like that brand of football there, guys, and you all know more about it than I do. But it just seems like it's back and forth. And AD, you talk about it; these teams knocking each other off. You know, and that's what makes it exciting. You got to win what's up next because tiebreakers come into play and it's going to make some teams fall.
Speaking of Johnson C, second in the CIAA in terms of points per game behind Virginia Union. I think about 32 points per game. Defensively, number one defensive team, allowing just about 11 points per game. What's interesting that, you know, as I looked at Johnson C's schedule, now they only play 10 games, right? The final 4 games for Johnson C are not cupcake games. I mean, it's like they really have faced a heck of a look. It may have been, with all respect to Tuskegee and Morehouse at the beginning of the season, it might have been kind of light, and even Lincoln, PA, and I was kind of like, yeah, let me see what they do against Virginia Union, and then they beat them. And then I'm like, okay, I'm believing. Then they mollywop Bluefield. And then they came back home and beat Virginia. Now, this is the remaining schedule. And these are all teams that are in contention. They host Shaw University for homecoming in 2 weeks. Then they travel up to Winston-Salem to take on the Rams. Then they host Fayetteville State. So the Old South used to be kind of like,
and everybody else.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you even check this out. When you get to the commemorative classic against Livingstone, and I saw this tweet by Stephen Gaither. Livingstone is 4-2. So you have the 2 schools which have been bottom feeders of the South for probably about a decade, but two of one of the oldest HBCU football programs. They are 10-2 in the first, 5-6 weeks of the season.
Can I break that down for you, Brian?
Please.
If you look at the Old South record, everybody's above 500 going into divisional play.
Yeah.
One
year when the South goes away, the 1 year they get away from divisions, it gets like that, right?
Yeah. When have you ever said that about those teams that were in the CIAA South? Everybody's above 500.
Yeah. It's been a minute. It's been a minute.
And the South has won the interdivisional matchup against the North this year.
Yeah. The other top 5 matchup was Winston-Salem State. They were number 2 in our BCSN top 5 on the road, taking on number 4 Virginia Union, who found their way back in. And this one was really all Virginia Union. 31-13 was the final score. Union had a 24-3 lead at halftime, led 24-6. Not the kind of game that Winston-Salem had played. You know, this was probably their least impressive game. And I don't know if that says more about Virginia Union or says a little something maybe about Winston-Salem. I still think, you know, they're 4-2, 1-1 in conference play. I still think they're a good ball club, but Virginia Union is starting to come around and form into the team that we expected them to be. Drew, any thoughts there you want to add on that top 5 matchup? Kind of anticlimactic, in my opinion. I thought Winston-Salem might give the Panthers a little more of a fight, but this one was all controlled by Union.
Yeah, I guess one good thing Winston-Salem did, Jada Byers only had 33 yards rushing on 16 attempts.
That's good.
Yeah. Now Curtis Allen had 68 yards on 12 attempts. Jerome Jones had 44 yards on 6 attempts. And what makes Virginia Union so good is they have had that 3-headed monster because they ran for 176 yards. which is right up the alley where they need to be. And Winston-Salem, who's had a good running game this season, only ran for 69 yards.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Charles, any thoughts there on Winston-Salem State, Virginia Union?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I like what Winston, and I kind of follow them a little bit as far as Winston-Salem. I think they're fairly decent football team. I like all the good individual efforts by some of these folks running the football. I kind of like where that is.
Mm-hmm. So we'll kind of pay attention to where Virginia Union. So we'll see where everybody shuffles. Obviously, when you have the number 1 team beating the number 3 team, the number 4 team beating 2, we'll kind of see where everyone shuffles out a little later in the show when we reveal the new BCSN top 5. The big upset, though, of the day, and I showed my broadcast partner, Dwayne Walker, this at the Edward Waters game, and he was in shock. He was like, what? He was like, are you sure? Yes. Yeah. So it happened to be in Atlanta on the red turf. Clark Atlanta Panthers, who were unbeaten coming into this contest, losing to Savannah State 35-28. And once again, the thing that has been going on with Clark Atlanta over the last, really since the opening week of the season, is slow starts offensively. And it's like once the engine gets going, then it's like, zoom, they go. Unfortunately, though, we all have been saying, or at least many people have been saying, how long is that sustainable? Well, it kind of bit them in the bug in this contest, as actually the offense did not score until 3 seconds remaining in the second quarter. Savannah State scored in the first quarter on a 30-yard touchdown pass from Jaden Sullivan to Demiki Colbert. Then they got a 50. Well, let me see. Well, I can't say the offense didn't score because Clark's defense actually got a score off a 51-yard interception. Then Savannah State answered with 2 more scores in the second quarter before Clark's offense, led by David Wright, actually managed to get a 1-yard pass from Wright to Trayvon Pender, 21-14. Going into halftime. Savannah State would score with about 7 seconds remaining in the third quarter, then answer again early in the fourth quarter to jump out to a 35-21 lead. David Wright would throw his second touchdown pass of the game with 10 minutes remaining on the following drive, and a late fumble by Wright on what could have been a game-tying drive turned out to be the game difference, as Savannah State would hold on to get a win. Savannah State, just their second win of the season. They are now 2-2 in conference play, 2-3 overall. Drew, the loss by Clark all of a sudden makes anything is possible in the SIC now. Everybody has a chance now, because we were all sitting there looking at Clark and looking at their schedule saying, yeah, I see them winning that game, this game, that game. And then all of a sudden it's like, uh-oh, you just lost. And did Clark lose its advantage that they had?
Yes. Oh, you want me to elaborate? My bad.
Oh, well,
I had been on this show in a while, so I forgot the rules of the game. No, but seriously, looking at the stats of this game, what is surprising, David Wright was held to just over 200 yards passing. Clark Atlanta did not even get 250 yards of total offense, whereas Savannah State had almost 400 yards of total offense. What did I tell you were going to have to do against Clark Atlanta, Bryan, in order to beat them? You are going to have to control the clock, which Savannah State did. They definitely controlled the clock in this particular ball game. Played a clean game. Despite of everything, in spite of going 1 of 3 in the red zone. 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 1 of Usually 1 or 3 in the red zone does not feel good when you against a team that has a little bit better talent on paper than you do. But somehow, some way, Savannah State has figured out a way to muck. That's with the M, everybody, to muck everything up for the SIAC and everybody who is in it. And let's talk on a personal level. That may have cost David Wright an opportunity at the Harlan Hill Award.
One game, huh? That's all it takes. One bad game, huh?
One bad game.
One bad game.
If we had to sit before that game, if we had to say the HBCU representative that everybody should be pushing for the Harlan Hill Award, was there no doubt it was going to be David Wright?
Easily. Yeah, he was the guy. Charles, your thoughts there? I don't know how much of David Wright you've had a chance to see. Many of us who get a chance to watch him have dubbed him the best quarterback in HBCU football. Clark goes down. Your thoughts?
Oh boy, that's a heavy statement right there.
Blame AD. Blame AD. He's the one. Yeah, he started it.
Hey, AD Drew goes deep in the weeds. I will say that when he says something like that, then he's done his homework on these other quarterbacks.
Who else can you put in the conversation besides Miles Crawley right now?
I
wouldn't put Miles Crawley.
I see you thinking too hard.
Yeah,
you have to think too hard.
Yeah, Crowley, right?
That's about the only other person that you could possibly put in the conversation would be Miles Crawley at this point in time.
I would agree with that because right now, I mean, what about Richardson of Florida A&M?
He's not in the conversation yet.
Mm.
He may be top 5, but when you talk about the best, I mean, I would listen to somebody argue about Miles Crawley, but anybody not named Miles Crawley should not even be in the conversation when discussing David Wright being the best old quarterback. Isaiah Knowles is a good quarterback at Albany State, but he's not David Wright. He's a good quarterback, and so is why am I drawing a blank? Who you just had Saturday
Walker Harris
at Fort Valley?
Durham.
Yeah, Calvin Durham, also good quarterbacks. But before Saturday, I think they were all playing for second compared to David Wright. Now David Wright has come back to the pack because if you're the best quarterback at HBCU football, I'm sorry, you don't lose to Savannah State. No disrespect to Savannah State, but that's not the team. If he loses to an Albany, if he loses to a Fort Valley, those are teams that you could say, okay, we understand. We're talking about Savannah State here.
Would you put Morgan in there? There's a post about Morgan for Jackson State. They won a couple in a row. Would you put?
Nah. He just got the job 2 weeks ago. How you gonna be in the conversation?
Hey, he'll have a shot. He'll have a shot in a couple of weeks to prove it, right? That's his big game coming up in a couple of weeks.
Go beat FAMU. You enter the conversation. Win the SWAC East. Enter the conversation. But I'm not I'm not jumping on the train. I'm not jumping on the bandwagon. I'm like Mike Washington. I need data points.
Let me so here's the standings in the SIC as of right now. Albany State and Miles are sitting atop 3-0 right now. Clark
and they play
this Saturday
next week.
Yeah,
they play Saturday.
Yeah, that's gonna be good.
So
that's gonna be good.
Somebody's gonna take control.
Sitting right behind Albany State and Miles is Clark Atlanta and Fort Valley State. Both are 3-1. Of course,
Clark owns the tiebreaker.
Clark owns the tiebreaker, having beaten them at the beginning of the season. Then you have 2 other teams, Benedict and Tuskegee, sitting at 2-1, who I'm not going to say they're not in it, but they will have a chance because they play some of these teams that are above them to sort of make a difference. Obviously, we know Tuskegee has Miles on their schedule. Just kind of taking a shot. They got Clark Atlanta as well on the schedule. So there's at least two teams right there that will have Tuskegee will have a say in. And then for Benedict also plays Miles, and they play Fort Valley State. So, interesting. It just last year was really interesting with the SIC. It's funny how all of a sudden, when you get away from divisions, memo to the SWAT, when you get away from divisions, all of a sudden, like the drama kind of ramps up in terms of who's going to play in that championship game. Just a thought, something to think about.
Brian, you forgot about the obvious matchup. You talked about all the other ones. You forgot Fort Valley and Albany still have to play each other the last week of the season also.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be that's gonna be potentially be an elimination game.
Yeah, it will. Speaking of Fort Valley, I'm gonna tell you now, that's a team to pay attention to. They probably have the best running back in the SIC, Brandon Marshall. Last night, I watched him run 25 times for 160 yards and 3 touchdowns. And more importantly, he looks to hit people. He loves hitting defensive backs coming downhill. I watched him hit guys that caught me like, ooh, gosh. And he caught a touchdown pass, 45 yards, over 200 all-purpose yards. We already talked about Kevin Durham. We know what he can do, but I don't know if it was just a weekend Edward Waters team or just a really good performance by Fort Valley, but pay attention to the Wildcats. If you thought they were dead because of that opening season loss, you were mistaken. They are good. And so there you go. That's my little 2 cents there on the team that my team that I predicted preseason that would get to the SIC championship, and I feel pretty good about it now after watching them live and in person. All right, Drew, you got a little bit of news you might want to share with us, as a lot of people have recognized, Drew hadn't been around for a little bit. Drew, people thought you were in the transfer portal, but now we can officially kind of say and know where you are at. So, my brother, why don't you go ahead and let the people know kind of what's going on with you and where you're at these days?
Yes, now as officially as of October 1, I became the sports marketing manager and sports information director at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, which was really bad timing on my part, because I did this. Everything went through the week of the Tuskegee Morehouse Classic, or the Morehouse Tuskegee Classic. So when I stepped into the press box, Brian, those who knew, because there were people around the conference and in the inner circle who knew that this was going on. But there were a lot of people who were there at the Tuskegee game who did not know about this, because the press release still hasn't gone out about it. And of course, I've got the big M on my hat and everything else. What the hell you doing with that on? What you doing? Like, bad timing on my part to do it that week. I should have waited till after this game. So, but it was all good. It was all fun. And yes, everybody talked major trash to me. It's bad when people talk so much trash to you when you're on the wrong end of the rivalry, when you've been on the other end of the rivalry so bad. But the only comeback that I had was, we see y'all come basketball season.
Yeah, you sounded like some of those other folks who are
change sports
for basketball season. Yeah,
I just had to change sports. Like, we see y'all come basketball season, because we know Morehouse basketball is usually one of the top teams in the SIAC and in Black college basketball.
Yeah, Tuskegee got y'all yesterday, 42-0.
I was there. You ain't got to say it like that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just in case anyone didn't know.
Yeah, the return to Columbus, 3-year hiatus in Birmingham, Alabama. Just a little bit over 6,000 people were there. The crowd was not what it used to be before the Classic left Columbus. And anytime a Classic moves, and Charles can attest to this, he's been around a heck of a lot longer than I have. When a Classic was established in one area and then it moves to another area, then tries to come back and reestablish itself in that first area, it takes a couple of years to build the crowd back up, because those stretches, because not only was it in Birmingham for 3 years, we also lost the COVID year. So it's been since 2019 since the Classic had been played in Columbus. And you know what you missed with that, Brian? There's a whole group of high school kids who did not get that opportunity to go to that Classic. And as far as Classics were going to, those games when we were in college, Brian, and Charles might be able to attest to this. They were even funner in high school when mom and dad used to drop you off, and you used to get out there and be around the older people and just try to learn. Like, what if I get an older girl number? Just that challenge and everything of the stupid stuff we used to do back in the day. But there's a whole group of kids, which ultimately is going to hurt that Classic, I think, because they lost that tradition for those 4 years or 5 years that it was out of circulation. So reestablishing that Classic, it will come back, but it's going to be a little bit of a uphill climb. It's going to take a couple of years for it to get back, to come back. But Columbus is not going to let that thing get away again. I will tell you that.
Good stuff. All right, go ahead.
Quickly, I just got to talk about this journey, and I'll make it and I'll try to make it click. Emmett, I'll go ahead and answer Emmett's question. Not as many as we would have liked to have seen. Not as many as we would like to have seen. Tuskegee definitely dominated the crowd there in Columbus. Probably about at least a 2-1 margin. But this journey that I've taken to get to this spot, I kind of liken it to, everybody knows I worked at a historically white college before for the 2022 and the 2023 season. And I will put it on athletes' terms, Charles. It was like you got drafted, you signed your rookie contract, and then you become a free agent. And that's what I had to do. I had to complete that rookie contract. And then I had the opportunity to kind of sit back, check the lay of the land, and explore some different opportunities. This process has been going on for a couple of months. I've had many conversations with many athletic directors, many of other interested people, fans, vested people in their athletic program. And the timing was never right until recently. And not to get too spiritual with you, but when you just about at your end and you think nothing's going to come through for you, all of a sudden things just started happening in the month of September. I received a call from we about to start carrying Chuck. That's one of the reasons why I had this took this position, because I couldn't go to a place that didn't care. And that's no disrespect against any of the other institutions that I talked to and everything. And I've had private conversations with Brian. I've had private conversations with Charles. I've had private conversations with other members, both within this network and out of this network, about just kind of piggybacking some ideas, getting some feedback on some different things. But seems like things started rolling in the month of September, when I was content on just sitting back and doing contract work. Within a 2-week time span, I received 3 serious calls from institutions and a couple other inquiries from institutions. And striking while the fire is hot, the iron is hot. I thought I was getting ready. I'm not gonna call out that institution by name. Both of you guys know which institution I thought I was talking about. I thought I was getting ready to go there, but things kind of got put on the back burner at that institution for a couple of weeks, and that's when this second opportunity came along. So obviously closer to my family and everything else. So my lesson in all this is, and Coach Norman, I know you out there listening. Keep fighting the fight. Don't give up. Keep doing what you do. As long as you do what you do and do what's right, somebody's gonna come along and give you what you may not be what you want, but they're gonna give you what you need. God's gonna always give you what you need, not necessarily what you want.
Well said.
Yeah, congratulations on that, AD. And I must say this, this whole media relations landscape is changing. I mean, there are people that want to get out of this thing, the stats and all that. And I think it's because of the social media aspect, and it's a lot more glamorous. It's not as grimy as just sitting there keeping stats. And I've worked with many an SID, throughout this league here at Alcorn and all of that. So for you to stay with it, to keep the grind going, and your relationships with different ADs, that to me is critical. I mean, just staying in touch, doing your job, keeping on the straight and narrow, professional, integrity, all that stuff matters when you're trying to get to where you need to go. So congratulations to you on that. And, you have a lot of respect around the HBCU landscape when it comes to stats and information and all that good stuff. So congratulations.
Yeah. And I just want to touch on that. I know I'm taking longer than we said we was going to take on this, Bryan. But if you know somebody, or if you go on somebody who likes to write, who don't mind doing them, you don't have stats is not what you think it is. The computer does all the work for you. You just have to understand how to use the software. I'll tell you that. I've trained Bryan on how to do stats for not saying Bryan's computer illiterate, but I've called him like, look, man, I got this opportunity for you. Writing. You mentioned the social media graphics. I mean, these hell, I find a good student, and then as long as you meet these standards, do what y'all do, because y'all do this better than I do. I have to say I do. I can do it, but you can do it a heck of a lot faster. Because I got to go pull out my computer. I don't know how they do some of this stuff, but they'll grab their phone and they'll do it on their phone while I'm sitting up here trying to type my password on the computer so I can get to the same program. Social media, streaming, everything. This particular industry, especially if you're a media or if you're a marketing person, this profession right here is a great profession to be in, because not only because of the people who get to meet, but just the influence that you can have both publicly and behind the scenes, because everybody's not as public as me. Most SIDs are not as public as me. I'm public because I'm coming from the other side. I'm coming from places like the Black College Sports Network and doing it. So I know what Charles needs when he's going to get ready to do my broadcast. I know what information Bryan needs when he's getting ready to do my broadcast, and Bryan knows exactly where I'm going with this conversation, because I've been that person who's been looking for that information. So I know what to give them. I understand the media deals and how important somebody like Charles with my local radio station, with my campus radio station, is to a department like mine. People don't like radio. They say it's not there anymore. Hey, okay, you don't have to turn it to whatever in your car, but I get my radio right here. So, things like that. So be open to this. There's a lot. Last thing, there's a lot of money that you can make in athletics, both amateur, high school, collegiate, and professionally, without being a player or a coach, and feed your family well. But we have been trained. We have limited ourselves so much. If I'm a play till I can't play no more, and then I'm gonna give me a coaching job. And I did that too. But when I was coaching, I quickly realized the first time I had to pay the referees for a basketball tournament, when I actually saw the books, I'm like, damn, I'm on the wrong side of this profession. The first time I had to pay somebody else to cut my baseball field, damn, I'm on the wrong side of this profession. And so many things like that, you know, there are so many. Hell, you can't do a game without a trainer, Charles. Perfect example. We saw that yesterday with y'all game, and how important having somebody who's an athletic trainer is. You like to play around with with taping ankles and stuff like that. Hey, go get a certification, be a trainer. And as much as sports information directors are in need, Charles, athletic trainers are even in more of demand than sports information directors are right now.
Yeah.
Get into that admin stuff. Learn the compliance. If you got a business degree, it's business managers. There are plenty of things that you can do around athletics to feed your family besides playing and coaching. I'm off my soapbox.
It's all good. Man, good stuff. All right. Drew, who's Morehouse got this upcoming week?
We like it. We like a lot of the teams right now. This is our official bye.
Okay. Well, great opportunity.
So they're gonna take a couple of days off, and then get away from football for a couple of days, and then get back into it and prepare. We have Albany State coming up on the 19th, so we'll be looking to play spoilers for the Golden Rams.
Yes, indeed. It'll be interesting because they've got that big matchup upcoming this Saturday against Miles. All right.
We know how you call it that game, that sandwich game, when you're looking ahead to the next game. You just played a tough game, but you look ahead to the next game.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're hoping for in Maroon Tiger Country.
Okay. All right. Good stuff. Okay, let's get ready to hit the break because we got Coach Farasi. We're behind schedule, but always good conversation. Thank you to everybody in the chat room. Make sure you hit Drew up if you want to at BCSN Drew. Obviously, is where you can hit him.
Still that. I was gonna say I'm looking to, for those who are wondering if all goes well, I'm looking to come back 2 Sunday nights on a more full-time basis after football season has concluded. I've got a lot of stuff that I've got to catch up on, so hopefully sometime in mid-November I'll look to come back full-time because Brian out here playing musical partners. He got some of everybody sitting in my chair, man. I don't appreciate that, man. But I went to go sit back in my chair and my butt cheeks just isn't sitting there the same way because everybody else been sitting in my chair, man.
Hey, I'm going to get like they do in Jeopardy. You know how Jeopardy had that moment when Alex Trebek wasn't there anymore and they just went to different people? I'm just going to be bringing in different people every week. You know, that's it. We're just going to bring in different people every week. You know, whoever's available, who's available, you know. We're just going to bring in everybody until you say you're ready to come back. So,
yeah, but like I said, hopefully mid-November, I'll be looking to come back and do the full show with you.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Well, let's get ready to head to break because on the other side, our coach Farasi Norman, he put in the work, and we got some games to talk about from his perspective, from the coaching perspective. Get a chance to kind of find out what he was paying attention to right on the other side of the break. Drew, last word before we go to break.
Thanks to all my BCSN family out here who's been congratulating me and who also congratulated me on Dr. Kavir's show. Love y'all. Hey, but no hookups. Don't ask me for no tickets to no Morehouse game. Y'all got to buy I like you, but I don't love you that much.
Well said. All right, let's take the short break. Come back right on the other side with Coach Farasi Norman. You're watching the BCSN SportsWrap. We'll be back in just a moment.
Choice Hotels is a family of brands that helps you get the most for your money so you can be any traveler you want to be.
You could be a free hot breakfast hero at a comfort hotel.
Yes!
That's how you waffle.
Mister, this script got a plot twist at a Radisson Hotel.
a business big leaguer. Go for key. Even the ultimate pool float inflator.
With 22 brands and the best value for your money, Choice Hotels has a stay for any you. Book direct at choicehotels.com, where travels come true. Gotta get the corners.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties. Through its programs, Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
Troy, you work here? I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes. Never not working. Never not working. Never ever not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield, never not working.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
All right, welcome back to the BCSN Sports Wrap. Bryan Fulford, Charles Edmond, and joining us is our coach, none other than Coach Farasi Norman.
Aloha.
Aloha. How you doing?
Hey, good job. Thank you. Drew, nice segment. Thank you for the congratulations. Happy for you, my friend. I know you'll do a great job over there. Everybody, since I've been on the show, everybody's been saying you need a background. I'm like, hey, I'm just a simple type guy. I'm a football coach. Background. I went and bought me a board, as you can see behind me, but it's clear. Because I didn't want to put myself up there because I didn't want people to think that I was like arrogant or too much more than who I am, although I'm good at what I do. But I will tell you this, when I went and bought the board the other day, it's been a while since I've been on a board. And they say we as coaches, and you're Coach Bryan, we love to get on the board. Mm-hmm. My marker right here, I bought 5 of them. So I get on the board, and I promise you, 2 hours going by, and I'm just like, everything is coming to fruition like, wow, how much stuff do I have? Mm-hmm. And I was getting upset because if you see, I got a decent sized board, but ain't a big one. I ain't got a lot of money like the rest of you guys. I'm a poor black guy just trying to make it a civilization. So I would get to the end of my board and I'd have to erase everything and start all over. And I'm just thinking, wow. But the funny part about it is none of my stuff is hard. Some coaches make football hard. I don't. I make it real simple, elementary. It's football, not physics, offense, defense, special teams. We just rep it. And that's how I've been so successful. But I was sitting up here and I was just like, wow. So anybody out in the chat room or anybody want to get on the board with the norm and we can do it 1x2, 2x2, 3x2, 10, 11, 12, whatever you want to do. I'm always willing. I got my marker, everything like that. Now, I'm not going to critique no coach. I'm not going to undercut anybody, but I can only show what I've done to be successful in those type of situations. Bryan, good to see you. Charles, hey, I saw you last week when you did the Alcorn game, bro. You did a good job speaking. And you was at the Mississippi Valley game. They got a nice stadium. Unfortunately, stadiums don't win games, but they got a nice stadium.
New grandstands, field turf, new video board. So Valley's on the come up.
We'll see. Nothing against Valley, but we'll see.
Come up in terms of facilities is what I'm saying.
Okay. I give you that much credit.
Yeah. That's what I meant. Come up as far as the facilities. Play on the field. Got a little work to do.
Got some work to do. Well, at least they, you gotta draw them. You gotta draw the interest, right, before you can get the players sometimes. So sometimes that's the first step. All right. So, Coach, we got a handful of games under your belt. Let's kind of go over to the CIAA because you had a chance to watch Shaw, the Shaw Bears taking on hosting Bluefield State. Shaw would end up getting a 35-17 victory over Bluefield, a game in which really most of the action happened in the first half. Shaw had a 28-10 lead at halftime over Bluefield State. Shaw improving to 4-2, 2-1. And as we were talking earlier, Shaw kind of moves into that position, and I was trying to pull it up here. Let me just kind of pull up the standings before you go into sort of your recap. Shaw kind of sits right in that muck of teams that are 2-1, sitting right there with Livingstone and Winston-Salem, just a game or a half a game back from unbeaten Johnson C and Virginia. What's your take on Shaw, who they're going to have a say in whether it be themselves or somebody else? They're going to have a say in who gets to the CIAA championship.
I watched that game this weekend, BF, because I wanted to see something different. I don't like seeing the same teams over and over, and so I'm a small college guy myself, and Langston, in case people don't forget. And we won this weekend, LU, So anyway, I just want to see something different. So I happened to click on this. My man Drew sent me a link, and he sent me the CIAA network, I think it's called. So I saw Shaw. And I didn't know Bluefield State was an HBCU. Really, I didn't. I mean, I've heard of them, but I know they was one of us. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I've heard of Shaw. I know they've got a pretty good program, everything like that. So I was watching the game, and I was impressed to the point where I was impressed. I was like, okay, good football, but it was missing something. Like, now, Bluefield has a little guy. He's probably the best player they got on the team. When I say little guy, he's 5'6.5", 5'7", slot receiver. You probably tell he was like a high school little league running back just by the way he moved and caught the ball and everything like that. He's a good one. Average size line, wasn't nobody just big, like I like him, big like offensive lineman, wasn't nobody just big. But that little guy stuck out to me when it came to Bluefield State. I think he scored first. Then on the next possession, Shaw returned a kick. Now, there's this myth about black people, we all got speed. Well, this brother, he wasn't slow, but he wasn't fast. You know what I'm saying? The blocks were there, so he followed his blocking. But I'm like, come on, let's get there. So he finally got there. Now, the next possession, they get the next possession up, they get it again. Now we're talking about some speed. They got a running back. I don't know who he is. You can probably look it up. He went 50 or 60 or more. I mean, they in the line, I'm an O-line guy. He did it right. The tackle step blocked this guy. The guard step blocked this guy. It opened up like the Red Sea, and that running back, he hit it. Wheels. I mean, like, whoa. I'm like, okay, there's speed right there. Then 2 series later, the quarterback, I'm not going to put him in a comparison of the guys that we've been talking to. I'm going to just say he's their quarterback. He rolled out. It was like a broken rollout. He looked like he was looking left, right, when nobody opened, and he rolled out, and he walked in for like 25 yards untouched. And then he threw one, like the very next series, and I saw Bluefield State, they kicked the field goal, like say, and then I just saw the first half. And make you say, I mean, that's what I saw. It was 28-10 right there. And then I switched over to for some odd reason, I live in Arizona, so when I say ASU, I think of Arizona State, but it's Alabama State. It was Alabama State and FAM. That was the game, okay? Of course, I'm out here in Alabama, so that was the game. And so we switched over to that one there, and I'm expecting I knew going in this was going to happen. Alabama State's going to run the ball because that's what they do, and FAMU's going to throw the ball because that's what they do, although you guys got good backs. Right now, Daniel Richardson has been forefront of your program. So I knew that was going to happen. I was thinking if Alabama State can run the ball the way they've been running, because they can go 3 deep, 4 deep, and move them chains. If they can keep the ball away from you guys, they can stay in this game and play with you. If you give the ball to Daniel Richardson and those receivers, and you let that running back get warm, then it's going to get out of hand. I was able only to see the first half. I saw Daniel Richardson complete a couple passes. The running back broke one. He broke. Reminds me of my little nephew. He's a senior in high school. My nephew sends me his clips every week, like, Uncle, check me out. And I love the boy. But he break a 50-60 and he get caught. I'm like, okay, Uncle wasn't like that. When Uncle broke, I went to the house. But that's just me teasing my nephew. That's just me teasing my nephew. He does get caught. So this running back, he breaks and he gets caught like at the 4. And I'm like, oh, come on. You got to be able to finish those. I mean, if you got to do sprints after practice, do some sprints, but you got to be able to finish those. They line up in a wildcat. The very next play, the backup quarterback, he takes around the corner for a 4-yard run. So they scored first. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the next series, and it wasn't too long later that you guys drove down and Richardson threw a touchdown ball. So it's 7-7 half. And I was watching my man BTG because, he did my first interview before I connected with you guys. So I tried to show him some love support. And then all of a sudden it just went blank. And I'm like, okay, this don't happen. He's got good stuff. He just going to go blank. Then he says, sorry, you guys, but I got to be loyal to those. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? And he says, Jackson State has always been loyal to me, so I got to be loyal to them. And boom, he shows the Jackson State game. So you see it in the chat room, people like, so we're not going to finish the game? What's going on here? He's like, nah, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to Jackson State because they've been really good with me. They helped me fund my show and everything like that. So I was like, okay, so I got a half in. It was 7-7. Then I switched over to the what was that? Jackson State and Alabama A&M.
Alabama A&M, yeah.
And then I was thinking, okay, we all know Alabama A&M. They've been struggling. They started off with Auburn, and then they had the 2 small schools, and then they got punched in the mouth by Austin Peay. They're 2-2. There was some components missing from their team, like Langford. Remember, I used to talk about Langford last year. We used to talk about him like he's one of the better HBCUs. I was like, is he even on a team? Does he have eligibility? I didn't know that he was there till yesterday. I was like, oh, there he is. And then I said if Jackson State could be that team a couple weeks ago when they jumped on Southern, if they can just play like that week after week, they're gonna have something to say for it. Well, first half they looked like that. It was like, wow, that running back was running, that O-line is blocking, the quarterback was making his throws. Defensively, Alabama A&M couldn't stop him. They couldn't stop him, and I was just like, this gonna be ugly. This gonna be ugly. Like, wow, we about to hit 70s because they was putting up them points. Okay, and then Langford. He was doing okay. He's got 3 tall, lanky receivers. I don't know their names, but they were like 50-50. Catch one, drop one. Catch one, drop one. Fellas, you can't do that if you're trying to win games. You got to work in practice, and that comes down to the coaching. Not going to discredit Connor Maynard. We know he's a great one. He's got a great offensive mind, but you got to get with those guys because they got what it takes because they were dwarfing those DBs, and we saw that in the second half. I mean, his guys are 6'4", 6'5", and the other DBs are 5'8", 5'9". I don't play small DBs because everybody's going to the big, tall receiver. So halftime, it was, what was it at halftime, Brian? 28-7? 28-10? It was ugly. It was ugly. It was all in favor of Jackson State. And I was like,
at one point it was 38-10. At one point,
38-10, something like, and I'm thinking, this is going to get ugly. But, Connor Maynard being who he is, a future Hall of Famer at this level, he went in there, and I don't know what he said to his team. Did he get like Coach Norman? Did he take his shirt off, show his muscles? Did he throw a water cooler? Did he say something? But whatever he did, he sparked his boys because they came out in second half, and it was like to say, battle of 2 halves. It was all Alabama A&M second half. And I was just like, for the first 5 drives, they scored like boom, 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 boom. And then they got the luck of the Irish. What was it, late third, fourth quarter? 4th and 12, first down. 4th and 9, first down. 4th and 12, first down. Mistakes by Jackson State. Some say in the crowd that TC took out the starters and put in the backups. I don't know if he did that. I don't know. I wasn't on the sideline, but I will say this. TC, brother, you're a good coach. You got to keep your guys in there till late 4 till you know you got it in hand because in the SWAC, everybody wants to win. Valley, Pine Bluff, A&M. No one just wants to lay down and take a beat. So if he did that, then I got this morning, they said, a couple guys were in trouble, so he had to sit them down. So I'm confused. Are they in trouble or did he sit them down? Because if they're in trouble, why play them? Then someone else said, he was getting ready. He didn't want to hurt nobody because he's getting ready for fam. Well, my man BS said, that's 2 weeks from now. So if all that was going on, I'm still going to say, brother, no. Keep your starters in the game. Now, if you're doing what you were doing and you get to the 60s, 70s, go ahead and take them out at the 4-minute mark. But you got to keep your players in there because that second half was just like, it was a total of two teams, man. Once again, if Alabama A&M can catch 2 or 3 of those deep balls that Langford was throwing, because he was throwing them. He was throwing them. They pull it off. That running back, Ingram, he was running hard. I think he's a transfer from Michigan State. He's a good one. 5'11", 220. He was hitting them holes well. They got a big line. Number 76 is an NFL prospect, and he's a big one. I hope that he gets picked up. You know how they treat us, but I hope he gets picked up. But If there's 5 more minutes in that game, they get them. I think anybody can see that. They get them. 5 more minutes on that clock, they get that game. And I don't know if Jackson State just got tired, but I will say this, and everyone knows I'm trying to get in, and AD and BF been doing a good job for me. BCSN has been doing a good job promoting me, helping me out. So like I said, I don't want to discredit nobody, but I will say this. I saw this from TC, and I kind of got aggravated because I'm thinking, bro, you need to do something. You, head coach, need to do something. People in the chat were saying, we told you guys he couldn't coach. That's why Deion didn't take him. I don't know nothing about that. I wasn't on the staff. I know that the athletic director appointed him. I know he played there. I know he was a good athlete. I know he went to the league out of there. So I'm not gonna say he didn't deserve the job. I'm gonna say this: you got to do when the tides change. You ain't got to act like the coach at Alabama UAB. What's the name? The guy that played in the league. What's his name, Brian?
Trent Dilfer.
Thank you. You ain't got to act like Trent Dilfer on the sideline and kick a water cooler and scream and shout and push somebody. You ain't got to go that far. That's unnecessary. That's not good coaching. But you got to do something to get some attention. You got to walk up to your coach. I don't care if he's your friend, your brother. You got to get in his butt. And you ain't got to yell, scream, but you got to say, hey, what is going on? Change it now or I'm taking over. Remember the Titans when Denzel told boy, change it now or I'm taking over. That's being a head coach. That's not personal. Then call a timeout and get everybody together and get some correctness. He stood there. I'm 5'8", so I don't know how tall he is, but he just stood there with his hands on his hips and he had this smile on his face. I'm like, no, stop smiling. This is getting ugly. This is getting bad. You know, and I don't know if Jackson State going to try to clip him. It's only year 2. I do think he's doing a good job, but I'm saying if I'm the AD, I'm going to say, TC, I need to talk to you in my office, please. What was that? And I don't want to see a smile. I need to see some coaching. And once again, I do believe he's a good coach. I'm still, on his side because I remember he said he got 85% of his team and they were going to do a good job. But they're up and down. One week they look really good. One half they look really good. Then they look bad. And we can't point to coordinators or players because it comes down to you wearing that hat. Remember a couple weeks ago, AD gave me a segment where I got to say what I've done to build up to, starting with the student coach, then a position coach, then assistant coordinator. Now, I do know TC was a position coach. He was a coordinator for Deion. He coached at several other schools. So I think he deserves that hat. But yesterday, I got frustrated as someone who's trying to get in because he just stood there with a smile. And I'm like, stop smiling. Stop smiling. Do something. Do something. Do something. Because this is, once again, 5 more minutes on that clock, you lose that game. And you're up 38-10. That's unheard of. Now, flip the script. Connell Maynard. Don't know what's happening at Alabama. We don't know. Only, him and the higher-ups know what's going on. But he showed yesterday he can coach. He showed yesterday he ain't lost it. Because that was beautiful second half. And one thing I noticed about Connell Maynard, he reminds me a lot like Tom Landry. I lived in Dallas when I was young with my grandma. He don't get upset. He don't get frustrated. He just stays nice and calm. And he'll walk and he'll talk to you. And yesterday I got a little frustrated with a player. I don't know what's going on with this new generation, but when I was coming up, we didn't disrespect our coaches. Coaches was like parents. Whatever they said, it was yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Yesterday, it was during a special team. Somebody made a mistake and they got penalized. So he walked over there, pulled his headset off, was talking to the kid. Kid looked at him funny, flipped him, went like this and walked off. No. You be done if that's Coach Norman. We got nothing else to say. I ain't got nothing to say to you no more that game. I just know when we get back to the house, Coach, go get his stuff. He's done. Because you don't disrespect me and I'm trying to help you get better. But I see that a lot these days with young kids. But once again, Coach got to let it be known who he is from the gate, from the start. When you come through that door, you got to have that iron fist up. You're not there to be liked. You're there to help young men get better and win football games. Hey, I don't care if you like me. I'm going to help you get better. If you don't like that, go find a coach who you can hang out with, who you can smoke and drink with, and you can flip them off. But Coach Norman, it's going to be a respectful factor at all times. I'm not going to disrespect you, not going to disrespect me. If you can't understand, Coach said, help me get better, find a new team. I didn't like that from that young man. And Connell Maynard, he didn't blow up. He just looked at the kid and went back to coaching. I respect that. And so for all those who tries to doubt him or anything like that, I think yesterday he said, hey, I can still do this. I can still do this. And I was very impressed with him. I will say this, though, back to the FAMU game. Speaking of offensive linemen, I critique linemen. People, when I'm watching game, I'm looking in the trenches. I'm looking at the O-line, D-line, especially the big boys. It was second quarter right before halftime. It was a run FAMU. Richardson handed the ball to the running back, big number 71. He's a biggin. He came out, looked everything right. Feet on the ground, arched back, hands up. Everything was right. except he didn't hit nobody. You're too big to not hit nobody. He came out 2 steps, feet stayed on the ground. We teach linemen, don't ever bring your feet up, keep them on the ground. He did everything right. But this linebacker shot right past him and popped that running back in a hole. And I'm saying, no, bro. You too big to let that happen. You have to be alert of what's going on. Because your brother, and I say, hey, big brother's the lineman, little brother be the running back. Don't let your little brother get hit. So if you do your job and you step and you push that guy, the running back can probably, zone off you and take it 10, 12, or however long he's going to take it. But I saw that and I'm like, okay, that's not good. That's a minus point. And you get 3 minuses and you got to sit down with Coach Norman. So that was a minus point in my book. I'm not coaching at FAMU. But I just want to throw that out there. So if he's paying attention to anybody at FAMU, they can get on him because that's not good. You're too big to be letting that happen. And in high school, I was 190 pounds. My high school was known for volleyball and wrestling, state championships every year. But all my offensive linemen were 5'7", 5'9", 150, 165. But they were state champions. I ran track, played basketball, played football, and I loved the weight room, so I was 190. So I'm bigger than my linemen. What I'm trying to say is that I got hit a lot playing option quarterback or the running back spot in the backfield, and they stand over you and they got a grin on their face talking about, Frost, my bad. You get tired of hearing that one. Because one of those my bads can hurt you. Career-wise, you can limp off the field and never come back. So I say that to say, big fellas, we got to do a better, and that's not coaching. That's not coaching, because once again, when you saw the play come out, he had everything right. Feet, arch back, hands up. So that's coaching right there. Everything else comes from you. And when that linebacker shot past you, you're supposed to see him, give him that shot so he can get off line. That running back coming can make that break and keep moving, but he did, and that running back got hit. And I put my head down like, that's a minus check for me. You get 3, then you got to sit down. Have a seat, cheer, whatever, but get ready for next week because we're going to work on that in practice 3 or 4 times. I'm going to look at you in the film and be like, whatever his name is, I'm going to rewind it to stare at you. I ain't going to say that. I'm just going to, because you're going to know you're in trouble. Oh, and there's a disciplinary action. Stop letting kids get away with stuff, coaches. Get on some butts. HBCU, y'all got to let Farasi Norman in. I'm tired of people in the chat room talking about there ain't no good coaches at the HBCU level. When you're looking and you're talking to one every Sunday, I'm trying to get in. I'm doing everything I can. I can't pull a gun on nobody. I wouldn't if I could. I don't do that no more. But I'm trying to get in, and I'm just trying to let everybody know there's some out there who care, want to continue education, and can get it done. I know we're running late. BF, I know I was talking kind of fast. Thanks for everything you do for me. Charles, appreciate what you do for HBCUs. And it's October. So still got some time.
Midpoint of the season. Here's what I want from you.
I got my hand up. I still got it up. Hopefully somebody gonna pick me up this year and we can get to work. Coach. Next week. I'll contact you late in the week to let you know which games I get. I'll give me 3 more games under my belt. I'm having fun. Season's going by. And hopefully, we can stop doing this on this side. Next time you see me, it'll be on the sideline like, Norm, can I catch up with you? I'm busy right now, BF. Hey, somebody talk to him. And I'll laugh and be like, I'm never too busy for my friend. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Coach, here's what I need from you. I need for next week, we need mid-season grades, offensive linemen, mid-season grades. You can go whichever conference you can either break down the SWAC, break down the MEAC, or all FCS, however you want to do it. But let's do for next week, mid-season grades, best offensive lines, mid-season grades for next week's show. How's that sound?
Sounds great. It'll be done.
Sounds great. All right. You guys, if you want to check out Coach, you can hit him up on X, Coach Farasi on X is where you can find him. Coach ain't hiding. He ain't hiding from you. He's not going to hide. Hey, that's what we do here on the SportsWrap. Come with some opinions, come with a strong take. That's what I love about Coach. Keeps it honest, keep it 100. Resume speaks for itself. So, Coach, we appreciate your time. Yes, we'll talk going into later in the week. We'll set the schedule and figure out the games that we talk, and then we'll get your midweek grades from you. All right?
Yes, sir. Hey, you guys have a good week. Charles, always good to see you. BF, we'll be in touch. Hey, HBCUs. Aloha.
All right, Coach Farasi Norman coming in,
Bryan,
checking us out.
That's the first time I've heard him speak, and you gotta love his brutal honesty and his line. I between Farasi Norman and Wheeler Brown, man, it don't get any better than that, man. That's brutal honesty.
Sometimes we need to hear that. A lot of people want, they want it. I like to tell the kids, this ain't Burger King. You want it your way. You want it soft. You want it on a pillow. You want the no, sometimes it's not that way. It's not that. You want to know why your team is not doing what they're doing and not having success. Sometimes somebody needs to tell it to you the way it really is. And it's not always packaged with a nice little bow around it, you know. So we appreciate y'all coming in. We appreciate the comments. You know, those of you who are not familiar with Coach Farasi, you can tell some of y'all in the chat, you hadn't been around before, but you know, we appreciate you coming in as it is. Again, we ought to remember, you know, what's always interesting, Charles, is and you've got a great perspective because you've been doing this for more than a minute. You've seen how we used to be starved for seeing games, right? And now we're in a time period, folks, where this is an unprecedented year for the amount of coverage that HBCUs are getting. This is a historic year. There are more games available via streaming networks, cable networks, terrestrial TV, you know, than ever before. And what comes with that is the same stuff that you get when you used to watch the Power Fours, right? You get the shots of the coach, you get the shots of the players, and sometimes they're not always flattering, are they, Charles? They catch you because they're telling a story. It's a TV show. Let's not forget about that, folks. It's a TV show. So a lot of times what we see, right, it's not always the story, but now more than ever, sometimes those views that we see, they shape perceptions. So it's always interesting, Charles. You've seen it where you used to be starved for attention. You used to be starved to get access. Now you get so much access that you got to almost be careful about any and everything that you do, say, and how you look now.
Absolutely. We are in a totally different era. You know, social media, I think, has helped change that. You know, social media can elevate and social media can decimate. So when you look at these games, all these games on all these different platforms, you're looking at it all. But, you know, there used to be a time in which HBCU football was on tape delay, 7 days. Now you're looking at stuff in real time. You can watch any game on any platform, on any device. And, you know, this is the same kind of camera work that you're seeing like right now. And I'm looking at, you know, NFL on CBS. My Rams lost, by the way, so I'm very ticked off about that. As we got 3 minutes left, I'm not happy. But but to your point, you're right. I mean, so everyone's going to have an opinion, and you know, social media is brutal. Social media was brutal to Southern University yesterday. When you win, you get elevated through social media, even though it may not be pretty. But when you lose, it gets brutal. It gets rough. Where before social media and before all this access and before all folks with these opinions, it wasn't quite that way. So it's just one of those things that we got to deal with. You're going to have people who've been coaching that's going to give their opinions, like Coach Norman. There are others out there that give their opinions about coaching. And so you might not agree, but if you know someone that knows X's and O's and they dissect it and break it down, it is what it is. Or someone once told me it ain't what it ain't. And so it's just one of those things that we just got to deal with. You might not agree, but if a coach who's been in the game can break it down to you, you might not like it, but the truth is what it is. So I appreciate Coach Norman, his brutal honesty about a lot of things, about a lot of teams and where they are. And but we're halfway through the season. I think the goals are still intact for a lot of our teams in the conference. Some, you know, I think everybody is really pretty much in the mix. Prairie View got off the deck by beating Grambling. If they lost that game last week, I think they were out. So second half of the season, who knows what's going to happen? The West is wild. I think it's going to come down to, you know, Jackson and Florida A&M, but then you got Jackson with a tough road even after that. So this is great. This is what it's all about. The Braves are very much in the mix. If they can beat Grambling at Grambling this week and win at Southern, I think Alcorn could be in the driver's seat. You just never know what's going to happen, and that's what makes this thing beautiful.
Yes, indeed. All right, let's. I want to, before we get into talking about the upcoming week, Charles, I want to get into showing the debut of week number 3 of the BCSN Top 5 power rankings, computer rankings, rather, is a better way of calling it. Now, The Black College Sports Network, just so those of you who are not familiar, these are computer rankings. We don't do a preseason ranking or a poll. We usually let the first 4 to 5 games of the season play out. That way, we get a true evaluation because, look, sometimes these preseason rankings are very off. And sometimes they point out some things that maybe people aren't ready for. For example, preseason rankings from Dr. Cavill's show had Clark Atlanta preseason number 4. Many people kind of scoffed at it. Coach Keaton called it rat poison. What do you know? What do you know? Rat poison everywhere from Daytona Beach all the way to South Florida and a few cities in between, right? And they started the first 5 weeks of the season unbeaten. Turns out that whoever those voters are, the voters were pretty much on it. While they may have been wrong in some other areas, it is what it is, right? So we get into the 2 divisions that we have here at the Black College Sports Network. We have the non-Division 1 side, which is made up of teams from the NAIA and Division 2. And then we have the Division 1 side, teams made up of our schools playing in the FCS, MEAC, SWAC, CAA, and the Big South OVC, which houses Tennessee State. So let's start, Charles, by kind of taking a look. The BCSN top 5 in the non-Division 1 level for week number 3. And we like to call our in the hunt teams. If you were to say a top 10, if this were a top 10, these would be the teams that are kind of sitting in the 6 to 10 spots. As you can see, we've got Albany State sitting closest to the top 5, coming in with 599 points. Virginia State right behind them with just 1 point behind them at 598. Miles Golden Bears sitting at 3-2 at 589 points. Florida Memorial, who got a win over the weekend, they are sitting at 2-1, 1-1 in conference play. And then you have Shaw sitting at 535 points. So that's essentially 6 through 10, if you would. And those are the teams that are kind of sitting, as we like to say, in the hunt. Coming in at number 5, Clark Atlanta. So Clark, let me go back and look here where Clark moved from. Clark last week, they were also number 5 last week. So really no big change for Clark, although in points, they did lose some points, but no real drop in the standings for Clark. Coming in at number 4, a big move up from in the hunt to number 4, West Virginia State Yellow Jackets. Many folks aren't familiar with West Virginia State. They are part of the Mountain East Division II Conference, which is pretty good. And this time, West Virginia State is off to a 3-0 start in conference play after getting a 45-35 win over Fairmont State. So it'd be interesting to see how long West Virginia State can go. They will actually, if they can keep winning, they'll start to get national attention because this conference is one of the better conferences in Division II football. Coming in at number 3, the Rams, Winston-Salem State, dropping from 2nd to 3rd with 624 points. Of course, losing to Virginia Union 31-13. Big matchup against Shaw upcoming on Saturday. That should be really interesting. Number 2, jumping from number 4 up to number 2, Virginia Union. Virginia Union, 3-2, 2-0 in conference play, 691 points. Beat another top 5 team last week in Winston-Salem State. They got Elizabeth City State this upcoming week. And number 1, for the 2nd week in a row, Johnson C. Smith, unbeaten, 6-0, 3-0 in conference play. The only collegiate football team in North Carolina, as I saw that tweet. Didn't come from me. But Johnson C. Smith coming in at number 1. So there you see the breakdown from 1 to 5, along with teams in the hunt. Charles, what are your thoughts there? How about the CIAA coming in 1, 2, and 3?
I am very much impressed by what I've seen in terms of record, just in terms of synergy and energy on social media about some of these teams. They're getting, at this level that you're looking at with these teams, they're getting more and more pub on social media, and just from some of the good stuff that they're doing, some of the big wins. Clark, Atlanta, I'm still thinking about that win they had with Bethune-Cookman, which still stands out in my mind. I started stuttering when I got that five. When I asked AD Drew about it, we didn't get to it, but to see Clark come back and beat Bethune, that was huge. But I mean, I think this is a heck of a poll. I have no problems with that. And the CIAA, you don't see these matchups too often with the SWAC and MEAC games for various reasons. I think they're just some good matchups, some good teams that you can get beat. And I think it proves that there's some good football at this particular level.
What I find fascinating, Charles, is last year when the SIAC got away from divisions, we really talked it up about how those top, it went down to literally the last week of the season, the race for who would get into the SIAC championship game. And what I'm seeing now is that the first year where the CIAA has moved away from North and South divisions, I feel like we've got that same buzz happening. And really, this one's even more magnified, Charles, because the Southern Division teams were it really was Fayetteville State and everybody else. It really was for the last 4 or 5 years. But now you see teams like Johnson C. Smith, Winston-Salem State, Shaw, Livingstone, teams that are getting off the mat and are actually having winning seasons. I think Drew said everybody in the South Division has a winning record right now. That was like unheard of for the last 2-3 seasons coming out of COVID. So I just find that really interesting and exciting. Good for the CIAA for having these kind of matchups and for these schools. And I just hope, they're going to beat each other up, that's just naturally what's going to happen. Because of the scheduling, they're going to beat each other up, but somebody's going to come out of it. And I think it'll be interesting to see who it is.
Well, the point that you brought up about doing away with divisions, okay? Mm-hmm. You've seen the top conference in the country, the SEC, do away with divisions. Top 2 teams in the SEC play for the championship. Now you're seeing the CIAA do away with divisions, and that makes it more exciting. And so, the SWAC obviously has got the East and West, but I'm wondering going forward with this new realignment and these teams moving around, is this model still going to continue to exist in which you got divisions? Because it has made it, at least in the SEC, look at the upsets yesterday. And you just mentioned the CIAA, look at that, how it's made for some more exciting games. I'm just wondering, just in 3 or 4 years, 5 years, we're going to be talking about divisions at all in some of these conferences, because I think there's some argument that can be made that why have these divisions when, if you want the best 2 teams to play in your conference championship game, do away with the divisions and let it ride. It's happening in SWAC baseball. It's happening in SWAC baseball. And so softball's going to follow. I don't think it's going to be this year, but I think in 2026, I think that's going to probably happen because they mirror baseball. So this argument of divisions, if it goes away, I think it could lead to more exciting brand of whatever sport, baseball, softball, football. So I think you're seeing that in the CIAA, and good for them, because I think it makes every game important, and you're going to really have your top 2 teams playing for the conference title.
Now, I'm going to ask you to speculate, because I love speculation. SWAC football, I know there is a 10-year, I believe there's a 10-year matrix that's already out. So it began when the new members came on board, with FAMU and Bethune came on board. So we're in year 4, if I'm not mistaken, of that schedule. So speculate, not that let's just say once this schedule matrix ends, so we're talking, 5 years, 6 years from now, what percentage would you give to potentially the SWAC moving away from divisions. And again, this is pure speculation. I'm not going to hold you to it, but just for conversation and to really kind of get the buzz out there, what percentage would you give it?
I will give 70 to 80% in favor of doing away with divisions once this new matrix expired.
Ooh, wow.
I think there, Carlos and I have talked about this, and having your top two teams play for the conference championship in whatever sport, and so I think it's going to happen. And we know in college football mirrors the NFL, the 2-minute timeout and all that, the headset communications, we're all copycatting the big boys. So when we talk about the big boys in terms of college football, the 2-minute timeout, the tablets on the sideline, you're seeing the SEC do away with divisions. Even in baseball, they're going to they had to experiment with a base outside the first baseline to try to nab runner interference and kind of give a different color base at first base. I think that's going to be standard in college baseball. I think it's going to happen. Once this new matrix expires, I would say that there's probably going to be more and more and more synergy from fans to do away with the East and West and let whatever the top two teams in the SWAC of this 12-team conference play for the championship. You got your top two teams. I think that's what fans want. I think you're seeing more and more energy now for it. The East and West has been good for the SWAC, but down the road, the next 5, 6, 7 years, I do predict that we're probably going to do away with the East and West. Just my opinion. I don't know that, but I just have a feeling that the energy is going to go down the line to where you're going to have that. So I'm going to say there's going to be some folks against it always. I don't think it's going to be 12-0, but I think there's going to be probably 9-3. All you need is 2/3. All you need is 8. I think it's going to be 9-3 in 5 or 6 years in favor of doing away with the division. So not in the near term, right, but in the distant term, I do think that divisions are going to go away, and I think your top two teams are going to play for the championship.
Ooh, interesting. And this is coming from someone, Charles. Now, I'm not gonna hold you to it, but Charles knows, just because he's been in the conference he's seen the conference move, and he knows the movers and shakers. So it's interesting. Let me answer. So I got to answer. Okay, Clarence Kenny here. Clarence says that the CIAA has always been better than the SIC. Clarence, with the exception of Bowie State, over the last few years, I will disagree with you on this statement that it's always been better. Let's just say the last 5 years, the CIAA has been top heavy with a really strong Bowie State. But, from, I would say, top to bottom, I think the SIC has been a little bit better than the CIAA. Now, of course, look, if you want to go deep into the history books, okay. Maybe Clarence is talking basketball. Now, basketball, you might be right, Clarence. You might be right. And that the CIAA has been better than the SIC in basketball. But I think there's a bit of a rejuvenation for the CIAA right now, this year. So we'll see how long it lasts. Clarence. I mean, all respect to Bowie State, a great program. They've kind of come back to the pack this year, but I don't know, so we'll just keep it like that. Let's get into the FCS level and go into the top 5 from the HBCUs and the FCS level. All right. Let me see. I got my stats pulled up from last week to see who was there. All right, here we go. In the hunt. So this would be 6, 7, and 8. We've got Alcorn State, Charles, for the second week in a row, kind of in the hunt. Now at 3-3, 534 points. Hampton also in the hunt for the second consecutive week. They are 3. Lost a close game, Charles, to 20th ranked Rhode Island. They had a 31-17 lead with 7 minutes to go. Couldn't close the deal. Let the game get sent to overtime. Then in double overtime, they missed the 2-point conversion. So Rhode Island scores the touchdown, converts to 2, ball game. Heartbreaking loss at home for Hampton. Came very close to knocking off the 20th ranked Rhode Island. I don't even know what their nickname is, but man, so close. So close to pulling off the upset in the CAA. And then Alabama State, who dropped from 3 all the way down to 6, 7, essentially 8 after losing to FAMU. So let's get into the top 5. Computer rankings coming in at number 5, South Carolina State Bulldogs. Coach Chennis Berry and the Bulldogs jump into the top 5 for the first time this season. A good win at Tennessee Tech, 22-10. Very good win for South Carolina. Eric Phoenix. Hold on, where are the numbers for Phoenix, Charles? Eric Phoenix, former quarterback from Benedict, 17-31, 412 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 INTs. I think that's the second in the last 3 weeks where Phoenix has put up almost plus 350 passing. And that's scary because not many people thought he was a passing quarterback. And so if he's putting up those numbers, I'm telling y'all, MEAC, watch out. Watch out for these Bulldogs. Keep an eye out. Coming in at number 4, Tennessee State also got a good win on the road, beating Lindenwood in conference. They beat Lindenwood 24-10, moving to 4-2, 2-1 in conference play. They host Eastern Illinois for homecoming, which will be on campus at Hale Stadium. No, wait a minute. Where are they having that game at? I think they're going to play that game at Nissan. Yeah, they are. Too bad. I think a couple years ago they played it at Hale. But anyway, great opportunity for Tennessee State to continue to add to their winning ways as they take on Eastern Illinois next week. Tennessee State also jumping into the top 5 for the first time. No, correction. Last week they were number 5, so they move up from 5 to number 4. Number 3, the Rattlers. They were in the hunt. They were out of it pretty much because, the bye week, couple FCS teams. But we know, cream rises. They come up to the top, back in the 3 spot. Florida A&M does 643 points after beating Bama State for homecoming. Y'all learn, don't schedule the Rattlers for homecoming. We'll take over your stadium. So take over your stadium, take over your city, and eat all the food, and then we're going to head back to Tallahassee.
And get the win.
Yeah, get the win. It's all good. Oh, man. Good job by FAMU. Coming in at number 2. Don't ever say we don't appreciate good teams doing what they do. Jackson State, the Tigers, playing some good football right now, no doubt. Got a good win out of Mobile, 45-38, 4-2, 2-0 in SWAC play. Coming in at number 2. And I agree with this. I can respect the computers. And notice it was just 2 points. 2-point difference. It sets it up for that big matchup in 2 weeks, Charles. Jackson State has a bye. FAMU has that's what we need 2 weeks of just talking and hyping up this game. I called it the game of the year. I'm going to spend the next 2 weeks talking about this matchup. I'm sorry. I'm telling everyone out in the HBCU sporting diaspora, I'm sorry. We are going to talk about this game for 2 weeks. We're going to break this game down in every possible way. And then get ready, Jackson, because we coming. Number 1 team, again, for the second consecutive week, North Carolina Central. And as good as Jackson State and FAMU are looking right now, the Eagles look really, really good. Went on the road to Campbell, 45-14 win. And this was the game, Charles, that I needed to see from them because I'm still trying to figure out how they lost by 20 to Elon at home. But, hey, they went on the road and beat Campbell. Campbell that beat a good Delaware State team the week before. They actually get it done this week. So here's your top 5. North Carolina Central, Jackson State, Florida A&M, Tennessee State, South Carolina State. A nice-looking top 5. Your thoughts, Charles?
Yeah. Trey Oliver, the coach at North Carolina Central, he's been kind of on a tangent about not getting the respect. He's been talking about that, what's happening in the MEAC and not getting, all the attention. The SWAC's getting all out of the love, and Trey Oliver in North Carolina Central, they just go about the business of going about their business. And so I think, they're out to prove a point. to try to get back to to Atlanta again and make something happen. Jackson State, Florida A&M. I'm on the I'm on one of these polls, Donald Ware's poll, and I always have trouble when you're playing up or playing down. How much do you get dinged for it, especially when you're playing FCS or you're playing up and you lose? Florida A&M lost to Troy. We lost to Vanderbilt. We lost, obviously, to UAB. When you're playing up like this and you lose, how much of a ding is it compared to other teams that are playing maybe in conference and HBCU, another HBCU, and they win? So, the Florida A&M thing with Troy, I wondered did that hurt them, but I think they made up for it nicely by beating Alabama State. I would put Florida A&M 2 by a hair over Jackson State. A big win over Alabama State. Jackson's got to go to Montgomery coming up. I would put Florida A&M 2. I would slide Jackson State down to 3, even though they had a big win yesterday over Alabama A&M in Mobile. South Carolina State, I think Chennis Berry is going to do a great job there. I mean, I saw their game with Florida A&M, and I think some mistakes were made early, but I think he's got that team on the right track. I don't have a problem with that. And Eddie George is doing a nice job at Tennessee State. I don't think anybody's talking about that either. So that top 5, Central, I'm good with. I probably would put FAMU 2, Jackson 3.
My own personal 5, and you mentioned being a voter. Again, these are the computer rankings. So this is what the computer comes up with, right? Again, taking into factor, strength of schedule, opponents, games, conference games, things like that. I mean, I will say that what probably plays a big factor in Jackson State being 2 points over FAMU is the fact that FAMU is one less conference game. If FAMU would have played Alabama A&M and probably won, all things equal, FAMU might be sitting a point or two ahead of Jackson State, but I don't know that. I'm just speculating. My personal top 5, I do have these same 5 teams in a little different order. I've got Central 1, FAMU 2, Jackson State 3, South Carolina State 4, Tennessee State 5. So that's my own personal top 5 in a couple of the polls that I vote in. And I think those are clear. Like, I think these are the 5 teams right now, Charles. I think the first half of the season, these are tier 1. And none of these teams are really, I don't think, dramatically better than the others. I mean, as good as Central has looked, so, I don't think anybody has really separated, in my eyes, that far from each other. Then there's the second tier of teams. So do I think, obviously, Tennessee State does not have an opportunity to play in the Celebration Bowl, but they could be playoff bound, possibly. I think I will not be surprised to see a matchup featuring, and I say matchup meaning a Celebration Bowl matchup, featuring 2 of these 4 MEAC SWAC teams. I will not be surprised.
I would agree with you on that. And one thing I will say, and you kind of talked about it in these matchups, we're struggling like heck to win these out of conference games, and we complain about it. We groan about should we even be playing these teams in the FCS. That's an old conversation. It's going to continue to be had. But I will say on the MEAC side, they play these teams out. They play these teams outside of the norm, and they win these games. I'm not saying South Carolina State is playing South Carolina, but I'm saying these games, Elon, and these other games on the East Coast, they seem to play these teams and they seem to have a level of success. And so I wish, as a SWAC grad and as a SWAC product, I would love to see us, the SWAC, have that same level of success out of conference that the MEAC has had. And I don't think it's talked about enough on the East Coast. I think folks on the East Coast probably talk about it, but I would like to see us do that more out of conference. But clearly the teams in the MEAC and on that side are winning some of those games. And it's got my attention for sure. I mean, and I'm impressed with that, because for me, that's important. So our fans in the SWAC may not be, but on that side, I think it does matter.
Yeah, I agree. I think it matters, and I think what's interesting is you're going to. I think as long as schools can have a good non-conference schedule, or good non-conference wins, because remember the MEAC schools, especially this year where there's 12 games for most schools, you get 7 non-conference. Even in a normal 11-game season, you're getting 6 non-conference. So you're playing more non-conference than conference games. So
right.
you will have what you had last year, where when Central stumbled in Green Stadium and lost to Howard, they ended up in the playoffs. Why? Because they had beaten a couple of very good non-conference teams. And so I think the same is at play this year, especially what you saw if South Carolina State or if Central, if they stumble where you end up with one loss in the MEAC, because I do think there's going to be another tie, another situation in the MEAC where I don't think anyone's going unbeaten. So let me just say that. I don't think anybody's going unbeaten in the MEAC. I think there's going to be a one-loss team conference play that goes to the Celebration Bowl, and it's going to open the door for somebody to have a shot at going to the playoffs, the FCS playoffs. So, I think that's a real possibility. So,
I think in the SWAC, I mean, if you look at, Jackson State, that game against Grambling didn't count in the SWAC standings, but did that, in the grand scheme of things, if Jackson doesn't win the East, does that hurt their playoff chances? FAMU a couple of years ago made it to the playoffs and played Southeast Louisiana because of what they did well for the most part, with the exception of the one hiccup against Jackson State. Could we see that in the SWAC? I mean, could we see a team in the SWAC make the playoffs when you look at FAMU, when you look at Jackson? I mean, Alcorn right now is 2-0. If Alcorn beats Grambling and Southern, they control the West, I believe, because you got Texas Southern, Prairie View, Alabama State, Jackson after that. But, I'm a big fan of the postseason. I'm a big fan of the FCS playoffs. There's an FCS fans nation out there on Facebook, and they break that thing down like they do bracketology in basketball. Top 20, first 4 in the playoffs, last 4 out. They break it down with a whiteboard and it's old-fashioned gumshoe stuff. I like that. And but our fans don't like it. Our fans don't care about it. The commissioner said there's no money in it. But in terms of trying to beat teams on your level, that's what we got. And so I would love to see more of that in terms of the playoffs. But on that side, I just think it's a little bit more oomph in terms of getting to that postseason than you see on our side. I hope that changes, but probably not. I think I'm just preaching to the choir here on that one. I don't think it's going to happen. But you love it. You love data. You love that kind of stuff. I do too. And so, we're in the minority on it. But I would like to see, if we can do that in the playoffs. And with the way that the standings could be mucked up, especially on the western side, it's wild. Teams are getting off the mat like Prairie View. I think the West could be wild, and you can have 3 or 4 teams in the hunt for that Western Division. On the East, it's pretty simple. I think right now it's Jackson and FAMU, but I think Jackson's got the tougher road. Jackson still got to go to Alcorn. They got to go to Alabama State. So I think Jackson, even though that's a big game with FAMU, they got a tough road even after that. And so I'm anxious to see how the Eastern Division shapes up, even though we know the top 2 teams in the East. I mean, no one else is going to challenge those 2 teams. There's no question about that in my mind.
You're right. October 19th. Got it circled. Got it
Are you
circled.
going? Are you going to Jackson?
I'm going to say yes, because I want to build the anticipation. So I want all the people, I say our Jackson State people. I want you to know I'm coming. I'm coming to Jackson. I'm looking forward to it. I hear so much. I love great college towns. I hear nothing but great things about Jackson, Mississippi. Never been to Jackson, Mississippi. So I'm looking forward to it. I want to enjoy. I want to go to the spots that I hear a lot of y'all talk about. I want to experience it. Like, I love college football atmosphere. So I'm looking forward to it, and so I'm looking forward to it. I know who to hang with. And I know some people I know who not to hang with because they may send me down a dark road. So I be very careful.
When was the last time Florida A&M played at Memorial Stadium?
Oh my God, let's not talk about that. That was a disaster. The last time we went there, we lost on a last second Hail Mary or something.
Sure.
Some foolishness.
I remember that. Sure was.
Some
I
foolishness.
do. Yeah.
But anyway,
it came to my mind. Yeah.
It was a travesty. But that's the nature of the beast, right? The nature of the beast. So anyway, looking forward to it. All right. Let me see. See, I know who not to hang with. I'm not hanging with Israel Carey. See, Israel, he'll have me on some dark road somewhere that's not even their camp.
No.
I'm just saying, yeah. See, that's what I'm talking, Amanda. That's what I need to know. Where's the best restaurant in Jackson, Mississippi? I need y'all to go ahead and next 2 weeks. That's all we're gonna talk about. Where's the hot spots, the restaurants that we need to hit up in Jackson?
Well, Brian, do you like all you can eat places? I'm an all you can eat person. I like all you can eat.
I honestly, I used to be that person. I have to, but if I do, that just means I have to be on a tight diet in the week leading up. So you can go ahead and tell me where the all you can eat spots are. I just need to know.
Well, there's a place called Mama Hamil's. It's not that far from the stadium. It's really popular. All you can eat kind of soul food type stuff. They give you all of that. Mama Hamil's is a good one for me. But if you just want a place that a good burger, there's a place called Stamps. Now, I haven't had Stamps burgers personally.
I've heard of that place.
I have not had Stamps personally. Every time I'm in Jackson, I think about Stamps and I pass right on by. But I want to try it. And if the Stamps burger is as big as a computer screen, from what I've been told, and I would love to check out Stamps. There's a nice little seafood place not too far if you like all you can eat seafood, crab legs and all that, catfish. There's a place called Berry's. There's another place. It's on a white dome. I forget. I think Jerry's catfish, Mississippi raised, nice fillets. If you like good catfish, that's a place to go. And so there's a lot of good places, in Jackson to go. I love to eat, so I'm trying to find all you can eat places. Left and right. I love crab legs and shrimp. I love seafood. So those are just some of the places I can remember that I know in Jackson where I've eaten, and I give my thumbs up to it because I like good food.
Good stuff. All right. Well,
I'm getting hungry, Brian. Just talking about that, I'm getting hungry.
I heard my stomach just kind of I was like, oh Lord. So I'm definitely kind of putting my list together of places to hit up when we get in town. Looking forward to it. All right, let's kind of wrap up the show, Charles, and kind of spotlight just some of the games that are upcoming this Saturday. Of course, as I previously mentioned, we got a Friday night game, Prairie View at Arkansas Pine Bluff, 8:00 on Friday, October 11th. Then there are 4 SWAC contests on Saturday. So pretty much Friday and Saturday, everybody but Jackson State and FAMU are playing. I mean, whoever the schedule makers are. Chef's kiss to the schedule maker. They knew.
Yeah.
They needed to have those 2 teams get all the rest you need, because we're going to be talking about Jackson State and FAMU all week. Everybody else, I'm sorry, move out of the way. But in terms of this Saturday, hold on, let me go back to my schedule is. We got Bethune at Alabama A&M, Valley at Alabama State, 2 winless teams going into Alabama, State that won no games on the Division I level. Then you've got Alcorn, Charles, traveling to Grambling, your alma mater. The Alcorn State Braves, Charles. I mean, you got 2 wins that you were supposed to win. Grambling on a bye. Whew, should be exciting. And then Southern's got to get off the ledge. Tough loss. They're traveling to Texas Southern, Charles. What are you looking forward to?
I think Grambling and Alcorn is the game of the week Saturday. Going into the hole, I'm a Grambling grad. It's hard to win in the hole. When we had Steve McNair in his last year, 94, we lost 62-56. I mean, that was a track meet. That's one of the better SWAC games you'll ever see. Grambling, they're coming off a bye week. They're going to be fresh, just like we saw UAPB yesterday coming off a bye week. They're going to come out fresh. I think that's going to be a really good football game. If we can ground and pound, we got 600 yards rushing these last 2 weeks. If we can do that, take a little pressure off Xavier Bond to push the ball down the field, I think we got a shot. But Grambling's got Crowley, no doubt, best quarterback in the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and they're at home. They beat Jackson. So it's going to be a tough challenge coming out of there. So that's the game of the week, I think. Southern and Texas Southern, I'll put that as the second best game of the week. I mean, Southern's got to forget about Nichols, throw that game in the trash can. Terrence Graves said he's going to open it up and try to fix it. I mean, there's some stuff to fix, but you can't lean on Nichols and have that game beat you twice, by letting the Nichols game affect you against TSU. I think Texas Southern got a little dose of reality. In their last SWAC game, they're at home. And so I think that's going to be a tough one for Southern. But, I think the experience, I think they're a little bit better. I think they'll get Texas Southern, but don't sleep on TSU. Don't sleep on them at all. I don't think anyone's expecting anything, and they like it that way. But they beat Prairie View, so they got the attention. So I think it's going to be a good week. Bama's Bethune-Cookman and Alabama A&M. I'm just worried about A&M right now. And, just a few short years ago, they won the spring championship. And it's been downhill with a quill glass and all that. And some people kind of discount that championship like it really didn't count. It didn't matter. I disagree. You won a championship despite the circumstances. That they won the championship. It'll go in the record books, just like the Lakers in the bubble. But they've been downhill ever since. So I'm kind of worried about Coach Maynor. You got a new AD, fairly new, and Dr. Bryan. He wants to win. So, we'll see if A&M can get off the mat. It's been tough for Bethune-Cookman. They lost to Clark, and I'm wondering have they bounced back from that. And then, Mississippi Valley, Alabama State. Valley's still trying to figure things out. I think Bama State's the better team defensively. So I would go with Alabama State in that game. But the two games of the week, I think number one, Alcorn Grambling, and number two, Southern Texas Southern.
Hey, I love this little tidbit from my guy, Road Dog. Texas Southern's beaten Southern the past 2 years. And here comes Southern licking their wounds after getting beat by Nichols. Woo! Wow. That I'm gonna have to be very cautious to not go down the road of overreaction, because my overreaction tells me today to pick Texas Southern, but I may have to kind of let a few days, sit before I kind of really, choose a side. Right.
Yeah. Well, for me, when I talk to Carlos about these type of games, when you don't expect Southern to get off the mat, they get off the mat. But when you expect them to play well and do well at home or on the road, they don't, especially at home. And so this is one game in which everyone's cussing and fussing the Jaguar Nation, cussing and fussing at Southern University, and they may play the perfect game at Texas Southern Saturday. So I don't know what Southern team's going to show up. But if you got any residual effects from that Nichols game and you take that to Houston Saturday, you're going to lose. I think Texas Southern, they have nothing to lose. Dishman hired late, won a big win over Prairie View. That's still going to hurt Prairie View down the road, I think. But Southern University's got to flush that Nichols game, tear up the stat sheet. I know Graves is going to probably look at the film, but, I mean, really, I would just rather just see them forget about that and focus on the task at hand, which is Texas Southern and Houston. That's going to be a tough out for them. But Southern will get off the mat somehow, just like against Prairie View. Against Prairie View, they were down and out, and you counted them out. They sent it in overtime, and they win it in overtime. So that's the kind of game I expect from Southern. Just when you think they're out, they're not. And just when you think they got it comfortable, it's not. So we'll see how that unfolds.
Over in the MEAC, Howard is home hosting Sacred Heart. Sacred Heart, who I think has already beaten. Let me see. Sacred Heart just beat. Who they just beat? Didn't they just beat Norfolk State? If I'm not mistaken, they just beat Norfolk State 10-3. Yeah. They just beat Norfolk State 10-3. So now they travel to take on Howard. North Carolina Central hosting Virginia Lynchburg. So a 70. Watch out for a 70 point. I'm calling a 70-point alert on North Carolina Central. He might put up 70 on Lynchburg.
70 piece?
Yeah, there's a 70-piece alert on in Durham. I'm just being real about it. Norfolk State takes on Towson. My man Lennon Blow, boy, they rallying up the alumni and the dollars trying to get rid of Dawson Odoms, and this one might not help the whole cause there.
I've heard a couple of schools of thought on that, Bryan, and you know that landscape better than me. That
they ain't got no real money to get rid of coaches.
That's kind of what I've heard.
That's the funny part.
Yeah, he's making more money than he did at Southern, but they're deep in it. Can if there's a discussion about that, can they afford to buy him out? I mean, there are a number of coaches at our level that are where they are, and I've said this before, simply because the administration can't necessarily buy them out at that point in time, so they kind of let the contract run out and just go with it. So I don't know where Dawson Odom stands. I know it's been a struggle. They got a coach that was at Alcorn, is his offensive coordinator, Coach Phillips, and so he helped bring Tyler Macon to Alcorn and all that. So hopefully they can get it turned around. But it's been tough sledding from day one for Dawson Odoms.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has. Delaware State, my favorite 1-5 HBCU team, travels to Robert Morris. My gosh, they are probably that team probably should be 3-3, but they sit at 1-5. I get you are what your record says you are, but man, I tell you, Delaware State, they just now that's a team that man, I can't wait to see what they do in conference play, Charles. I can't wait to see what they do. And then Morgan State is at home against Merrimack College. So another week of non-conference games for the MEAC. And I think they have this weekend and next weekend a couple of teams play, and then they finally get into the conference schedule. Most of the teams, they have their first full week of conference games beginning on October 26th. So the chase for the Celebration Bowl can finally begin over there for those teams. Moving over to the non-Division I level, the CIAA, the big time matchup. A couple of interesting games of note. Shaw traveling to Winston-Salem State. Two teams that have a loss under their belt. Could be an elimination game for somebody, to be honest. Somebody might find themselves on the outside with no shot of getting to the championship in that contest. That game is a 1:00 game in Winston-Salem. Fayetteville State, and this would not normally be a big game, but how about Livingstone, 4-2, hosting Fayetteville State? Hey, this is a big time matchup on the blue turf. I mean, normally we would look at this game and say, oh, Fayetteville State's going to put, 20-30 on them. I don't know about this year. Livingstone playing some good football. This will be interesting. And then Bowie State and Virginia State in Petersburg. Bowie State not having the kind of season that we've become used to, obviously during the Damon Wilson years, but still should be an interesting contest. Bowie State, Virginia State. If Virginia State wants any shot at getting back into the hunt, they got to figure a way how to beat Bowie State. That has to happen for them. Over in the SIC, the big time matchup, the big game is Albany State at Miles. Both teams are sitting atop the division, unbeaten. Doesn't get any better than that. Already in October, early October, we get a chance to see those two teams play. How will Clark Atlanta respond? They travel up to Ohio to take on Central State. That'll be interesting to see how they respond in that matchup. Fort Valley State hosting Allen. Should be a good game. That game will be on ESPN Plus. Fort Valley State, they're legit. They are legit. And let me see. Tuskegee travels to Lane in Jackson. So there's that matchup. Any of those matchups that you heard, Charles, that kind of perked your ears up?
That Central State of Ohio game, man, I'm anxious to see that matchup. And every time I think of Fort Valley. You know, Alcorn played at Fort Valley one year in football. And you talk about a long road trip. You know, I remember Montgomery was halfway or something. I remember traveling the wee hours of the night. It was weird. And Fort Valley gave us holy heck. So I always have a lot of respect for Fort Valley and what they do with football, because they always seem to have a competitive product. And then Clark, you know, I think about that Bethune-Cookman game and see if they can bounce back. So, you know, on that side, there's always storylines there. You know, it's always something there to talk about. You know, and those teams, Bryan, to me, they want to continue to uplift and get the kind of attention, and they're doing that. And I think AD Drew and yourself do a good job in elevating those matchups.
Yeah, well, definitely appreciate that. I know AD more than me, but it is fun to kind of to see those teams, and I love the fact that they have playoff opportunities. So I mean,
yes.
there's a little bit of that, which is a little enjoyable.
Well, Hamid, let me ask you this about the playoffs. So we talk about the SWAC in the FCS playoffs, right? You know, most of our fans don't give a hoot about it, could care less. But on that level, Bryan, is the level of interest in the playoffs about the same as SWAC fans when it comes to the FCS playoffs? Is it more? I would imagine from the outside looking in, there's a lot more anticipation for the playoffs for those teams who get in, and a lot more excitement. That's just from my vantage point. I might be wrong, but you know, what do you see in that?
I will say that I know when Bowie State made a run, Bowie State fans were very into the playoff run. They had some great crowds. Now, I'll contrast that, because first off, not many teams from our levels are hosting games, first off. So Bowie State is one of two that I can recall hosting. The other one was Benedict, 2 seasons where they were unbeaten. And I was, you know, I know it was new for Benedict, but I was a little disappointed that the crowds weren't bigger, you know. But, you know, Benedict has not been in this situation to the level that Bowie State had been. You know what I'm saying? Bowie State had really worked themselves up. They spent some years in the playoffs where they were on the road, won some games on the road, and then all of a sudden now you're hosting games. And so your crowd is engaged with the whole playoff process. It was brand new for Benedict. And the fact that they lost to 2 teams that really had history in the playoffs was disappointing. So I don't know if anyone will actually have an opportunity to host. And that's the thing, Charles. I mean, it's like, if, you know, I know there's history, like if a team like Albany State or Fort Valley State gets an opportunity to host, they have great fan support. And so I want to believe that fan base will show up for those teams and give those teams a home field advantage. But I don't know. So with all that said, I think there is a cautious optimism. That's the word I'm going to use. And it all comes down to how you perform. Again, look at, you only get 2 non-conference games, first off. So that factors in as well. And it depends on who you play in those conferences. Because one of the games, the 2 non-conference, you're playing probably another HBCU. You're playing either a team from over in if you're in the SIC, you're playing a team from the CIAA, maybe a team from the SWAC. Or if you're in the CIAA, you're playing a team from the SIC, you know, or maybe a MEAC school. So it kind of depends. Yeah, Clarence, I don't disagree with Clarence's thought here. that Black college fans, maybe we have not evolved since we integrated. We like what we like, and you know what, Charles? That's the big thing. That's the great thing. What I like about what the Celebration Bowl creates. We have our own. See, here's the thing: the Ivy League makes no apologies about what they do, right? They don't give two flips. You can keep ranking them in the polls. Guess where they're not going? They're not going to the playoffs. They're gonna do what they do, and they're in their lane, and they enjoy their games, and they have Ivy League champions, and hey, that's it. We keep moving. We have to realize that there's no money in going to the playoffs. Even at the Division II level, there's no money. So if we can create these opportunities for these schools, like what you saw with the bowl game between the CIAA and the SIAC, if those kind of opportunities can grow, similar to what has grown and been created by the Celebration Bowl, that's what we need to focus on. Create our own opportunities of wealth. And that's just where I think that's where we can create our own lane and benefit the most, because the football system is not, because the NCAA has made it this way, and it's not out of fault of our own, but it's the NCAA. The NCAA have allowed 30 schools to hijack it, and they're running off doing their own thing, and everybody else be damned.
Yeah, well, I asked the commissioner last year at Media Day about the FCS playoffs. Will it become financially viable to where teams will get paid and make money off of going to the playoffs? And he admitted, and it's the fact that the NCAA basketball tournament money is what's paying for the playoffs, teams hosting it and all that. He said it's not going to change. So as far as the playoffs are concerned, the system is the system. It's not going to change in terms of the amount of money distributed for that at any point in time, at least not in the near future. So, yeah, to your point, the brand that we have, the Celebration Bowl, and the other example you gave, if that's what helps, if that's what drives the fan interest, we got to go with it. I'm just being selfish. It's Charles Edmond's opinion, because I love the postseason. It brings out the best and sometimes the worst in teams, because you're playing for a championship. You're playing for something huge that gives you a lot of excitement. You put the trophy in the trophy case, but it's now about money and dollars. And so, you see this playoff is going to be 16 teams in the next few years. It's 12 now. It's going to be 16 in a couple of years. John Grant has kind of talked about it. Commissioners talked about it a little bit. So there's money there that they're going to get. That's less money for everyone else. And it, the Celebration Bowl, I agree, we have to continue to grow that and cultivate that. And even at these other situations where you get the attention. So I agree with you 100%. And if we have our own stuff going, and if it's beneficial, let's go with that. I'm just being selfish and saying I love the postseason. I love it. I love the FCS playoffs. We haven't been in it since '94. Florida A&M was in it recently. I know it doesn't generate any dollars, but I just like to see how we stack up against teams at our level. 63 scholarships versus 63, FAMU versus Southeast Louisiana, whatever the matchup is. I just like to see that, because I'd like to see us compete against those type of teams. But, I'm in the minority on it. I get it. I'm going to stick by my opinion on it, and everyone else has their opinion, and I respect that too. But the
problem, I'm with you on that. But like we said earlier in the show, as we were talking about Southern versus Nichols, and that lack of attention sometimes that our schools put on, that game, that's what hurts. It's like if we would go out and punch if Southern would come out and punch, you had the better record. If you come out and punch them in the mouth and beat them at home, hey, it's a statement game. If Hampton would have held on, if Hampton beaten a 20th ranked team, that's an opportunity. It's one of those statement games, and it just, whatever. Close only counts for whatever. But I mean, so I get to that point of saying, hey, create our own. I love the idea of. This was one of these conversations that we had about a potential. What if you could create a 4-team playoff? among the HBCU FCS teams, or even a 14 playoff for the non Division I HBCUs. I mean, how exciting would that be to actually see it played out on the field? Give the teams the proper television coverage, the proper media coverage, and let's see it. Let's play it out. I mean, that's how it starts, Charles. That's how it starts. So,
I think if you had a 14 playoff for the non, I think that would generate so much attention from their fan bases. I think it would generate more, and I hate to say it, than it would for if you got the SWAC teams in there, because we just don't. We ain't following it like that. I hate to say it. It's painful for me to say it, but it's just reality. It's just like you said, that team that you just mentioned that lost. Was it Hampton that just lost in the final seconds? What team was that?
Yeah, Hampton lost to Rhode Island in the final seconds. Yeah.
Okay, so which fan base endured the most pain in terms of just not getting it done? Was it Hampton's fan base, or was it Southern's fan base that lost to Nicholls State in the way that they lost it? Is losing the game is one thing, but when you lost it the way you lost it and you're at home. I mean, we didn't do Carlos' show yesterday. My theme going into that Southern Nicholls game, I would have said, Jaguars, make it competitive. If you lose 38-31, hey, I mean, I know you lost the game, but make it competitive. It wasn't competitive. And that's, you lose it's one thing, but it's not competitive. You're at home. Mumford can be rocking. We see that. And it wasn't. And it was frustrating for me. I know it's frustrating for some Jaguar fans just to see the fact the game wasn't close. But does it hurt? Does it hurt deeply? No, it probably doesn't, because you never really cared about the game that much in terms of the energy and synergy to begin with. Alcorn and McNeese. We gave McNeese 21 points. Hurt a little bit, but it's an FCS game, and I would love to see us compete. And unfortunately, we couldn't get it done. So, I just think it's two different attitudes, two different, different fan bases with different beliefs. And I'm not disrespecting any one of them. I respect those opinions on both sides of the thing. But when we want to try to get the attention from that other side, you're going to have to win some of these games, the McNeeses and the Nicholls of the world and the Stephen F's and the Sam Houstons. Playing up is going to be tough. You're going to get 800,000. Grandma's going to get a meal for playing Ohio State next year. But are you going to beat Ohio State? You would hope so, but you see these upsets every now and again, but probably not. But I would like to see us at our level. The SWAC is an FCS conference, FCS with 63 scholarships. There's some good FCS teams out there as far west as North Dakota State, one of the best in the country, best to do it. Even close to you, Bryan, Kennesaw State. They're really good at the FCS level, one of the better teams in the country. Let's see how we stack up against those teams. But that's just Charles Edmond's opinion. I know the vast majority of our fans don't even know those teams and probably don't even care. But then when we get beat like that, and then everybody's in a tizzy about it, then that's when folks come out of the woodwork. And, I respect that, but, we just got to win some of these games.
Hey, by comparison, since you brought up the Nicholls, Southern, and Rhode Island Hampton, right? The attendance for the Southern game, 17,179. That is probably, I'm trying to think of all the games I've seen the attendance. I think that might have been the second largest crowd, falling right, of course, behind the 33 that was at Alabama State. So Southern had 17,000 people in attendance. And probably before a lot of those people got inside the stadium, they were already down 24-0 in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Another 14 points before the human jukebox even performed at halftime. You're down 38-0 at that point. And Edwin says 17 is low. It may be low, but it's still good compared to everything else on the marketplace. So
it is. I didn't know what the attendance was. If 17,000, I will give Southern fans thumbs up for that one. Exactly. Mumford seats 29.
Okay.
Mumford seats 29, and you get 7. I would have said 13 or 12 if I just had to guess before the game what I thought the attendance would be. I would have said below 17, just because, and maybe because it's an in-state rival. Maybe if you're playing Stephen F. it would be a little less. But 17, for Southern, that's pretty doggone good. Hate the game turned out the way it did, but I'm happy to see 17 show up. Just like I was impressed with 33 at Hornet Stadium. We're seeing attendance figures, Brian, go up as far as our games are concerned. 33 at Hornet Stadium, 17 for Mumford Stadium for a game of that magnitude. We had a good crowded space, but of course it was homecoming. But I like the attendance in terms of what we're seeing. We're seeing bigger crowds, in my opinion, at a lot of our games, and that's good because we're talking about the dollars, we're talking about money made, money lost, we're talking about budgets. All that plays a factor in it. So I'm glad to see Southern have 17 in Mumford for that game.
And then I'm gonna juxtapose that. So you do the percentage there, and then now the Hampton Rhode Island game, right? Rhode Island, top 20 in the FCS polls, coming in taking on Hampton. I don't think they're missing a number here. 1,729 is what's listed. Armstrong Stadium seats 12,000. That's tough. That's about 10%.
Yeah,
maybe
that's
11.
not good.
Maybe that's 11 to 12% of your stadium capacity there for a conference matchup against the 20th ranked team in the nation.
Yeah, and
you took them to double overtime. Hampton took them to double, nearly had them beat. They were up 31-17 in the fourth quarter, midway through the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that's tough right there.
That's tough.
Yeah. I can't explain that one away. That's one I can't explain.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey Charles, man, I really appreciate you tonight coming in and joining me, and some good conversations. Appreciate everybody in the chat room. Appreciate all of your interaction, your commentary. Always love it. Thank you for watching the show. Make sure you're following us, Black College Sports Network, at MyBCSN1, the number one. If you can, if you're a podcast listener, go check out the BCSN Pod Zone. Everywhere you listen to podcasts, BCSN Pod Zone is where you can get all of our shows. Charles, tomorrow night, the Cedric Thomas Show. Let people know where they can find your show. We always try to rebroadcast it on our BCSN Pod Zone, but if they want to listen and watch it live, where can they do that?
Yeah, you can go to WPRL's FM Facebook page. It'll be on that, and then we're on YouTube, Brave Sports Network. Of course, you'll have a copy of it, and so we'll talk about the UAPB game. But we're going to start. I can just promote this right away. We're going to start with the injury. We're going to get Cedric Thomas's thought on that because that's more important than the game in that segment. So we're going to talk about that. I want to get a still shot of him on one knee right outside of that huddle. It just still is etched in my mind. Just get his thoughts on that. But Braves have won 2 in a row, and we got a tough one at Grambling. So we'll look ahead to the G-Men and Crowley in that offense. So that's how you can check us out. All the interviews, all the shows on the Pod Zone here. On our WPRL Facebook page, and I'll repost it on my Facebook page. And I'm also on X, Tall Man Radio. And so we're looking forward to talking some Braves football tomorrow night.
All right, there it is. Make sure to check out Charles's show Monday night. On Tuesday, check back in with us here on the Black College Sports Network. Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab on Tuesday. The Indy Report on Wednesday, along with the ONG Strike Zone. Will FAMU guys breaking? I don't know what's going to happen because I may be dealing with weather situations. So to be determined. Anybody in the way of Hurricane Milton, I think is the name. It's an M. So Milton. So anybody in the path of Milton, take care of yourselves this week. Be safe, and I'm hoping everything is all good so that way I can hopefully check out some games. And, of course, hopefully the Carlos Brown Show will be back on Saturday. Carlos, Coach Van Pettaway, A.D. Wheeler Brown, and the panel.
I'm going to nurse Carlos Brown back to good health. There will be show. There will be a show next week, whether he's ready for it or not. We got to talk some Jaguar football on Saturday. He'll be ready. I'm going to get him ready.
Speak it into existence. There we go. I love it. All right. All right. I think the Steeler game is out of rain delay or weather delay. I've seen it. A couple people mentioned that the game had a late start. So that's good for me. So that means I can eat dinner and then watch this Steeler Cowboys game and root against the Cowboys. So we'll see. All right. For all of our guests tonight, AD Drew, Coach Farasi Norman, and of course for Charles Edmond, I'm Bryan Fulford. Thank you guys for watching this BCSN Sports Wrap right here on the Black College Sports Network. Be safe, be well, and enjoy the week of content on the Black College Sports Network. Peace out.